You know, President Obama would be going up in a helicopter and I'd be saluting and I'd have track marks on my arm. So like I was really living a double life, but you know, that whole thing ended with right outside of Bolling Air Force Base, I got caught with a ton of heroin. You know, it's part of my story. My whole life was dependent on what I was going to do in the military. The military was going to save me. The military was going to make me a man. The military, really, what I thought internally was going to help me apply all these principles that were in my heart, that were really set there by Jesus long time ago.
Right.
But I was pursuing all these other avenues to let them flow, to fulfill it, right? Yep. I know we were talking earlier about, you know, busting into somebody's house and tying them up. And, you know, I remember doing those type of things when I was a kid, you know, and they called it home invasion. And I, like, in the meantime, I end up on the top 10 most wanted of Allegheny County. I was sleeping in an abandoned house. We had no window. I mean, the windows were broken. The door was jammed on there. There was no heat. There was no electricity. There was no water. Hell on earth is what I call it. Yeah. I mean, I remember for 3 winters, you know, I saw my mom almost freeze to death. I'd overdosed 15 times. They made a movie about me. It's called Hope After Heroin, and I'm literally overdosing and getting brought back to life. And it's crazy because there's like 7 people in that movie, and all the other ones have recovery stories. This was in 2016, and they're like, but here's one gentleman who probably won't last through the next month. God, if you're with me, I need you to come to me in a dream and let me know that you're with me and I'm not alone. Because I knew I couldn't move forward on my own. I mean, what else? Like I said, you literally try to kill yourself and it doesn't work. What do you, I mean, really, let's talk about being out of options here, right? I'm out of options. I'm sitting over there and I'm looking over to Cathedral of Learning because the one corner of the VA on the psych floor, that's where the window faces. And this kid comes over to me. Like I said, I'm not somebody that you just typically approach, not because I'm so bad and tough, but because I just give off a bad, evil vibe, man. This kid comes over. I'm just looking out to Cathedral Learning, and I don't even know what I was thinking at that point. I was just sitting there on the vestibule, and I'm looking out, and he comes over to me, and I had never seen this kid. Obviously, I say kid, but he was a veteran. Obviously, he was on the VA psych floor, and he comes over to me and very abruptly looks at me, and he says, God came to me in a dream last night, and he wanted me to let you know that he's with you and you're not alone. Dude, those are the exact words, the exact words, God, that you're with me, I'm not alone. And I looked at him, and I needed, you know, doubting Thomas, right? I still need some type of confirmation. And I'm like, so wait. I'm like, did God tell you to just go talk to any veteran? He cuts me off. And he's like, no. And he points at me, he's like, God told me to come to you. But when God comes in, he is the only one that can turn that mess into the message. The greatest value I bring to this earth is my testimony, man.
And I looked down and Ken said right next to me, I said, we're here and we represent the SemperFi Mission. And we're here to lead you to the Lord and give you hope.
For those of you that don't know, SemperFi in the United States Marine Corps means always faithful. And this whole mission, this whole everything has been driven by faith. I'm talking about pulling people out the trap house. Pulling people right there off the streets. I'm talking about Satan. You can see the marks on their neck from Satan. Physically, figuratively, literally.
Spiritually.
Spiritually. I'm talking about those type situations.
We are Christians. Join our podcast to listen. We are Christians.
ChristYinz. Hey, what's up, everyone? What's up, Pittsburgh? You guys like that?
What's up? Love it.
That's right. Hey, Glenny B in the house. We got Jared. Jared's actually here for a change.
I'm in the house.
We got the OG Christians hoodie on.
OG.
Hey, anyway, we got some guests right here. We got the SemperFi Mission guests. We got 2 gentlemen with awesome, amazing testimonies to share with you. We got some stories to tell, and it's gonna be one of them roads. It's gonna be a road that's just, hey, it's gonna be exciting, awesome, amazing. You got any more adjectives and verbs besides nouns? What's up, Jared? Go on.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be exciting. That's what I feel. It's gonna be great. Great testimony.
Right. So we got Chuck and we got Ken. A little bit of background here. So Jared and I, we go to the same church, and we met Chuck at our church, and our church is pretty big. We get over 1,000 people. You know, sometimes we have some big events. I actually met Chuck at Steel City Fest.
What's the name of the church, bro?
Revival Today Church, RTC.
Awesome place.
With Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth spitting Holy Ghost fire. And we got one down in Texas also. And Jonathan just moving around, he just saving souls, preaching, just that fire, baby.
Road, running his race. That's what he's doing.
So yeah, I'm going to bring that up because here's the thing.
Yeah.
So Melissa, Blessed Home Project, there's a plug.
Yeah.
One of the best charities in the city of Pittsburgh. Blessed
sure
Home
is.
Project.
Yep.
So Melissa was saying, come to revival, because it was a semi-new church.
Right.
You know, it wasn't even a year old yet. It was like half a year old. She's trying to get me to come, and the church that I grew up in shut down and everything. And
you talk about this Steel City Fest thing?
Yeah, so she was trying to get me to come to Steel City Fest, which was a 3-day event. So 3-day event downtown. And like I said, long story short, I came. Chuck was one of the first people that I met. I met him and Laura, who's now his wife. I don't know if were you guys married at that point?
Not married then.
Not married then. So yeah, who's now his wife. So I met them, and they took the time to speak to me and talk to me and make me feel welcome because the stadium was jam packed.
3,000 people.
3,000 people.
3,800.
Over 1,000 people came down to get saved. You know,
right.
And everything. But it blew me away because they were helping everybody. They were giving gift cards. Everybody was getting helped. It was amazing. And then I seen Jonathan on stage. You know, I seen Shuttlesworth on stage preaching, and I was like to Melissa, I was like, "Is this a preacher?" Yeah. And he was just spitting fire. He looked like us. He was dressed like us. He was just, bro. It was just all that, and I was just blown away by his preaching, and I was glued to it. You know, the whole time that I helped pass out Bibles, everything like that, they listened to me. Laura and Chuck listened to me, like testifying, telling a little bit about my life for like 45 minutes because I was going through some stuff still, pulling out of it. And they were really there for me. And that's what you're supposed to do, is make people feel welcome somewhere. So that was my first experience with them. And I thought that was great. And then,
we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we shoot emails back and forth or text messages. Hey, this all started because you reached out to us and you were there to listen.
Right.
When you needed it.
And that's how it is. And that's so to me, whenever I think about like my RTC fam and stuff, I think about everybody, but it's like, you know, I think about Chuck a lot, I think about Laura a lot. Of course, you know, there's us, you know what I mean, and everything else.
Yeah,
like
that's where I ran into you at Steel City Fest.
Yeah, and like, you know,
we had the boxing connection.
Right, we had the boxing,
and I didn't even know that until we met.
Yeah,
you said, I know this, and this, and I said, oh, yeah, I know this.
Yeah, so then, I seen you, and I was like, yo, you know what I mean? Because it's been a while, whatever, and you know, we have all the same like friends and the upbringing and things like that from neighborhoods and things like that. But and then this started this. So RTC started the ChristYinz Mission, you know, and now this is what we're doing. We're helping to save souls, and we're bringing people in to testify, and testimonies are helping other people, and we're doing extra things besides just the podcast.
Yep.
You know, so and then Ken. I just met Ken today, and Ken and we're going to hear all about it.
All about it.
And from what you told me already, it's just like crazy stories, like I said. And I've heard a lot of your stories, and you guys could probably...
God is just so involved in every little piece of this.
You guys could probably talk for hours and hours about everything.
We do.
So,
Yeah, we do.
yeah. So what? I mean, we're good here. Why don't just let them roll for a little bit?
Yeah, we'll let them
Jared,
roll. But I mean...
I like what you said when we were pre-gaming out there, the Revelations course.
Yeah, so Revelations, part of why this started and was powerful for me, so I know that it's powerful for other people. So this is one of the foundational scriptures why we started the ChristYinz Mission, was Hebrews 10:24, keep stirring each other up to love and good works, right? Yep. Just as you're doing. And Revelation 12:11, which is they overcame him, the enemy, right?
Right.
By 3 things. Number 1, the blood of the Lamb. Number 2, the word of their testimony. And people leave the third part out, which is probably the most important part. Is like the other ones, you know, are great, but this one is not loving your own life unto death, right? Which means it's not about me.
Not
like if I didn't wake up, and I'm just saying what that means is I didn't wake up today to be affirmed by anybody, to be loved by anybody. I woke up today to be loved, to be more like Christ. Amen. Right, that's why I woke up. So if I woke up today to be loved by my wife or be loved by my kids, then I'm only going to be doing as good as they treat me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right. So I woke up to be more like Jesus today. So that's what that means, not loving your own life to death.
Ken and I talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
What can we do?
And that's like I said, the ChristYinz Mission. Your mission now, which you're going to tell us about, but that's what it is. It's if you, and I say this all the time, ChristYinz Mission, your mission, any mission as a Christian, spread the word. And if you climbed out of the pit and you helped fix yourself and Jesus, you know, and everyone in your circle helped you get here, well, you're supposed to do the same for others. Yeah. And we're pulling people out of the pit. Yeah. So like I said, we're saving souls. We're giving people the word. We're letting them know what they don't know so that they can live life a different way and just have a different mindset and everything else like that. So
love that. And there's nothing stronger than a broken man that has rebuilt himself.
That's
Amen.
right.
Amen, brother.
It's amazing.
Now you got something to give, a story to tell.
Yeah,
testimony.
And both of you, like I said, have been through such such trials and tribulations. Like I said, so I'm interested to hear everything. So Chuck, if you guys want to go and take it, and you and him have talked for hours about this already.
Yeah.
You know, other places and in prisons and jail, whatever.
Right.
You guys just go, just flow with it.
And it just flows. But Ken's testimony this November, he and I got called into the jail. We were on the Veterans Pod. We were able to speak. I heard stuff about Ken that I've known him for almost 2 years now that I've never known. That segued into, hey, would you come down to the juvenile population and just let the juveniles know what a veteran is? So we went down there just to talk about what veterans is, but God totally took that over. Within an hour, Ken's testimony about how he grew up got the attention of these juveniles, which we turned into an altar call. And through the grace of God and through His glory, we were able to get the whole juvenile population saved within an hour. Woo! And along with some of the teachers that were there teaching the high school. Yeah. You know, but Ken, I'd like you to start off, brother, because I think your testimony is so powerful, and you know the whole SemperFi side of it and the whole Marine side of it. That's where Ken and I are brothers in the Marine Corps. That's a fraternity like no other. And I'll let Ken just take the mic here. And
the people need to know, Ken. Let's hear it.
Yeah, Ken.
So it's really simple, but for the grace of God, man. You know, when you were talking, you said, you know, I'm looking forward to hear Ken's story and the amazing things that have been done. And immediately my mind went to some of the things that Jesus did. Yeah. And I said, is really what I'm doing amazing, you know? And, you know, recently me and Chuck been talking a lot about, we were talking about the SemperFi mission. For those of you that don't know, SemperFi in the United States Marine Corps means always faithful. And this whole mission, this whole everything has been driven by faith. Everything is driven by faith. And where two or more are gathered in the power of God using broken people. I sent Chuck a meme last night. You know, meme is like the new form of communications. And I like it because it's a way of expressing yourself. And it was talking about how Noah would drink and he would get drunk, and how Rahab was a prostitute, and how Moses was a murderer. And a couple days ago, Chuck sent me this thing about how God will use those with tattoos who are ex-homosexuals and who essentially been through the ringer to reach those that can't be reached. And it just kept bringing my mind back to faith. And I was thinking about, I guess it was sent by you to Chuck. And, you know, so, you know, very, very quickly about me, you know, my story is one of very simply like Jesus leaving the 99 to go find the one, man.
And we had an episode on that parable, but like we always go back, like that's what it is. And that's what, so we like to tell people about Jesus, right? Because people have the wrong opinion about Jesus. And there's things that people don't know in the Bible, like you said. Like Moses was a murderer. He was a murderer.
He was a murderer,
like,
right?
And then he got scared. When they called him out on it, he ran and he hid. But he came back and still did what God called him to do. And people forget that. I'm like, Moses broke the 10 Commandments. I'm like, people don't know that either. I'm like,
God gave him
so
to him.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, like Jesus is here. Like you're broken. If you messed up, there's nothing that you can do that Jesus won't forgive you for. And that's where we are, like as men, broken men, like you said. We all have troubled past. We're not claiming to be perfect. That's not who we are. And like not banging on him, but I love Joel Osteen, but we're not the guy in the suit and tie preaching perfect English. We're the guys that were rough from the streets, from whatever. You guys got the ex-military experience, things like that, you know, and it goes, I know your story goes a lot deeper than that, like crazy stuff, but we're the ones that can testify to people. So that's, and I just reinforcing that for anyone watching. But Ken, keep going on, brother.
It's all good. So I guess I'll kind of share how I got here, man. You know, my whole life I'd always felt a sense of just a void in my heart, you know, just a void in my spirit. And you know, I didn't consider it a rough childhood because it was kind of just what we do. I know we were talking earlier about, you know, busting into somebody's house and tying them up. And, you know, I remember doing those type of things when I was a kid, you know, and they called it home invasion. And I didn't know that at the time. You know? And these things that were just normal to me. And needless to say, you know, I'll skip past all the childhood stuff. But, you know, by the time I was like 8 or 9, my brother went to federal prison for 14 years for the things that he was doing. And I was doing the same things that he was doing, you know, and probably worse because he was my brother. I wanted to one-up him.
Impress him,
Yeah, but for him, it was like kind of, you know, I don't want to say he chose that life, but there was a certain attraction for him to that. I guess he's a little bit older than me. He grew up with like in the 80s and more hardcore rap and NWA, and so he was attracted to that lifestyle. I wasn't attracted to it. I just fell into it by our circumstances. So it was a different experience for me, you know, to where like I always felt the presence of God in my life, and I always wanted to do better. But for whatever reason, I just kept finding myself on the wrong path, very simply. And you know, so like I said, he went to prison, and I was doing the things that I was doing, and I was in and out of the juvenile facilities and things like that. But I always wanted a better life, you know. And when I was 17 years old, September 11th happened. And to me, that was a clear-cut direction on what to do. And, you know, even though I was out there, you know, doing what I was doing, I was always patriotic. And I had a belief in something greater than myself. You know, it was just that simple, that there was something in charge of this thing that had better ideas than me, that was more loving and caring than me. I just couldn't find it. I found the dope man. I found the gangsters.
That's right.
You know, we're here at East Liberty. I remember being 16 years old, and there used to be a gang in East Liberty called The Law. And it was called Larmer and Wilkinsburg. And I got scooped up by them guys when I was 16 years old. I was literally the only white kid. And I remember being in trap houses, you know, and just seeing things that people should never see.
Oh, right on.
And not wanting to be there, but I was there with the law, you know, the Larmer and Wilkinsburg. Sorry, it's still up a gang side, but I'm not a member of a gang. Never have been. We can edit
some of these things out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not. I've never been in a gang. Never wanted to be in a gang. But like those were just the guys that I related to, right? So needless to say, like I go off to the military, and you know, first and foremost, like I identify somebody with the disease of addiction. Like by the grace of God, next month I'm coming up on 7 years clean and sober. And praise God, man. It's by God's grace alone. And you know, so like my addiction took me to some really, really dark places. You know, I ended up going in the military. I got hurt in Iraq in 2009. I started taking pain pills. My military career ended right outside Bowling Air Force Base. For those of you that don't know, is where the presidential helicopter lifts off from. I don't know how he gets over there. I think they probably use the what do you call it? The flow of it. What is it? I can't think of the name. The vehicles, with all the vehicles. The convoy. The
convoy,
yeah. They use the convoy to get there, and then the president lifts off, man. And I'll just take you to the end of that. Like it ended up, you know, President Obama would be going up in a helicopter, and I'd be saluting, and I'd have track marks on my arm. And I'd have blood running down my arm, and I'd have them little airplane bottles of whiskey and liquor in my pocket. And so like I was really living a double life. But, you know, that whole thing ended with right outside of Bowling Air Force Base, I got caught with a ton of heroin. And I don't like to share that, you know, but it happened. You know, it's part of my story. And I went to the brig, and I was supposed to be retired. And eventually they're like, look, we're gonna retire you and medically separate you, or you're going to get court-martialed. And, you know, you get to the end of the road and you see like you have no other choice. So like after all of that, you know, I gave my whole life was dependent on what I was going to do in the military. The military was going to save me. The military was going to make me a man. The military, really what I thought internally, was going to help me apply all these principles that were in my heart, that were really set there by Jesus long time ago. Right. But I was pursuing all these other avenues to let them flow, to fulfill it, right? Yep. And here's the kicker: they never worked. Yeah, like Jesus is the only substitute. Jesus is the only thing that really works. But our whole lives we can search for something else, and it takes us, I think, to some of all the places that we've all been to here. Right. I think that's definitely one thing we can relate to. So needless to say, like, got caught with a lot of drugs, and I got out the military, and I came back, and for the next 7 years, I was borderline homeless. I mean, I was sleeping in an abandoned house. We had no window. I mean, the windows were broken. The door was jammed on there. There was no heat. There was no electricity. There was no water. I mean, I saw things that a lot of people probably should never see. I mean, hell on earth is what I call it. Yeah. I mean, I remember for 3 winters, 214 McFarland Drive in Penn Hills, for 3 winters, you know, I saw my mom almost freeze to death. And I remember, you know, I couldn't call 911 because I'd given my phone to the dope man, of course. And I'd go to my neighbors and I'd say, hey, my mom is breathing. She's barely breathing. Can you please call the police? And they would slam their doors, man. I was the outcast. Mark 5. Pretty sure it's Mark 5. Here goes, I'm pretty sure because I can't remember. But they talk about the man in the graveyard, right? Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, right. Cutting himself, killing himself, literally chained up and outcast of society. I mean, that was me to some degree. My neighbors in an emergency wouldn't even open their doors, you know? And so needless to say, fast forward, like I go through all this stuff. Like in the meantime, I end up on the top 10 most wanted of Allegheny County. I mean, literally. That's what blew
my mind when we were sitting in the prison.
I could not live life with or without drugs, man. Like I was going down like the darkest paths possible. I'm walking through the neighborhoods close to here, and I'm busting antennas off of cars to get high. I'm taking water from puddles to shoot heroin. I mean, it was just I mean, bad. I'm in and out of jail. I mean, I'm waking up sick every day. Every 2-3 hours, I'm getting sick. I'm going through withdrawal, and I'm finding ways and means to get more. But I'll tell you this, that whole time that was going on, I still felt something inside of me. You know, the lightness was still there enough to give me hope. And so coming to the end of it, the end of 2016, you know, like I couldn't live life with or without drugs. And I didn't know how to get and stay sober. And I'd overdosed 15 times. They made a movie about me, a documentary.
We got to watch it when Ken
it's called Hope After
class.
Heroin, and I'm literally overdosing and getting brought back to life. And it's crazy because there's like 7 people in that movie, and all the other ones have recovery stories. This was in 2016, and they're like, but here's one gentleman who probably won't last through the next month. A former United States Marine named Kenneth Ackline, and it goes through it. And like I said, I had overdosed. And it's crazy, man, because I would overdose in these places where nobody should find me. I overdose in these trap houses in Homewood, right? And it would just be like the 6-month time on the schedule where the police were going through those houses. Like once every 6 months, they go through to check. And that would be the day I would overdose in there, you know, and the police would come through and save me. So needless to say, man, like I had all these things. Like I knew God was real and I knew that God existed. I just didn't know how to find him. I was still holding on to my ideas, attitudes, and beliefs that somehow I had the solution. Somehow my willpower was enough. Somehow I was going to figure this thing out on my own, that I didn't need a savior, that I just needed to figure it out. But God never left me. I love the scripture where it says, even while we were sinners, Christ died on the cross for us, man. Right. And I can relate to that. And I'm still a sinner today. The only difference is I have God and I have Christ in my life, so I'm learning every day to be more sanctified, to be like Christ, like you said when you wake up. Right, where I didn't have that direction before, and it showed by the road I was going down. Right. So at the end of 2016, man, I decided that was it. I'm going to kill myself. And so the first time I went into work, I was working at McDonald's in Wilkinsburg, which isn't too far from here. I was the maintenance man, and I would get there at like 3 a.m. and no other staff would come until like 6. And so I go in and I lock the doors, and I'm like, nobody's going to come in. This is it. I use an amount of heroin I've never used before to overdose and kill myself. And somehow somebody randomly came in 2 hours early for their shift that day, and they found me. And I woke up getting carted out of Wilkinsburg on the way to the hospital.
There's no coincidences, man.
No coincidence. So this
God
is one
acting
of my,
anonymously.
Yeah, man. There ain't no coincidences. This is God acting anonymously, you know. And so I go to the VA, and they knew it's a. Is that me or you? Tell Chuck to get some professional courtesy around here.
Come on, Mr. Arno.
Come on,
He got a business.
That's all my people checking in.
Yeah, no,
the mentorship side of this.
I know that's a good thing.
That's exactly what it is.
I keep my phone on for the same reason.
I'm going to do that.
So needless to say, like I go to the VA, and they knew it was a suicide attempt. But, you know, addicts, and if you're in the streets, you learn a certain way how to manipulate things and how to talk your way out of things. That's right. I've been in front of the judge many a times when I should have got, you know, well, I'll get to that. So, you know, and I essentially swear on literally a stack of Bibles that if I go home, I have a safety plan and I'll be fine. But meanwhile, I know, like, as soon as I get out of here, I need this pain to end, because I could find no solution to my pain. Drugs were no longer working. Nothing I was doing. I knew there was a God, but I wasn't willing to surrender to him. I wasn't willing to do his way, and I kept getting the same results. Like, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
That's right.
And that's true for me being a Christian, too. If I accept Christ, but I don't do any work, and this is for me, I continue to live the same lifestyle. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Like, God's grace is there, but if my heart doesn't change, I'm not changing in the way that I need to feel that experience.
Yeah. But to add to that, because we can all testify, because we're all changed men here, but it's like, you know, I grew up in church, you know, like my mom took me to church and everything, and I always would thank God. I mean, you can go back like 12, 13 years on social media, God this, like this and that and everything else like that. But it's like, until you get broken down, and it's all subjective, right? You have your life, he has his life, Chuck has his, we all have our own story, but you get broken down to absolutely nothing. Yeah. And that's whenever, like, you press in, you're like, all right, God, I've had enough. You, like, it's like Jesus take the wheel. It's like, no, for real, you take the wheel, because I give up, because I can't do this. I've tried it my way, I've tried it every other way, and I can't. And I know that's what happened to me and everyone else here, and you're probably leading up to that, Ken. And as soon as you do that and you start pressing in, you start realizing, but there's nothing, they say, there's nothing more humble for a man to do than, you know, say, hey, you're it, God, I can't do this. You are it. You know what I mean? And then you look to him. But like I said, listen, Jesus died for our sins, brother. He did. And people think that, oh, I'm too bad of a person. Jesus ain't going to love me. There's a no. Look at his disciples. Look at, like I said, we talked about the people that he used, you know, and look at the trials and tribulations, like even like Joseph went through, or even like Moses, like I said, we were talking about. But like, dude, you just press into it and you just go and it changes. So I know that on my walk since the day that I was like, I am done, because it was either I'm taking my own life, other people's lives, or Jesus, here you go, bro. You know what I mean? And I'm going to stay here on planet Earth, or if not, I'm meeting you right now, and me and you are fighting. And that's where I was. And I can say that because that's where I was at. That's the truth. So I just made a decision. I was like, all right, well, we're not going to go do all that stuff. We're going to give it to God and go on. So I just, I mean, that's where we're at. So like I said, whenever you make that decision, and go on.
I just want to chime in on that real quick because that's so important. I told Chuck the other day, I said, you know, because Chuck, I love Chuck. Chuck is really heavy.
I love Chuck too, man.
Chuck is really heavy on the Jesus piece from like the gate, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Can't help it.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, I'm all for it. But like, when you encounter a homeless person who doesn't believe in God, who has nothing, sometimes it's wise to offer him a piece of bread first.
Right.
You know? And that's why me and Chuck make such a good team. But moving on, so like I swore I wasn't going to do anything, and I got out and I went home and I took, I think like 200 Seroquel, which is a medication for sleep, and like 400 Benadryl. And I didn't leave a note or anything like that. I had no plan of waking up. Like I was literally, I just wanted to be
Bro,
gone.
can we say that number again just so? 200 Seroquel?
It was about 200. I mean, Chuck knows the VA will give you like a 3-month prescription. They had me heavily medicated.
200 and how many Benadryl?
I think about 400. There was a lot.
How did you get your hands on that much? Just like at the store?
No, I had them from the VA.
Oh, the Benadryl.
VA, they just mail you.
Yeah.
Packets of scripts. Laura, you get them.
And Laura can testify too.
She's like,
an overdose
took
package.
your scripts
They just
chain,
mail it
right?
to you.
Yeah, and so I took them in the morning, and I had no plans of waking up. Well, the next thing that I remember was I woke up in Homewood at like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm chasing a black car down the street, and I'm yelling at him, "You beat me for drugs! You beat me for drugs!"
So you were blacked out, and you woke up.
Yeah,
like you were running. You came to
running. I could still literally see what the gentleman was wearing. So 4 guys jump out of the car that I was chasing. The black, it was an older car, Oldsmobile or something like that. And they jump out. It's 4 white dudes with beards, and they pull out their badges, and they're like, "We're task force." And I'm like, "You beat me for drugs," you know? And
this is insane.
They had so much pity on me. They actually were like, "Where do you live?" And I'm like, "I live in Wilkinsburg." And they're like, "We'll take you home." And they took me home. And see, all throughout that week, throughout those 2 attempts, I had an acquaintance. I won't call him a friend because we were just sharing drugs, you know. And he was like, "Look, man," he was like, "I've been through some things, and I'm worried for you. You know, when the dope when the dope man is like, you need to go to rehab. You need some help.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their whole. You are their business model.
Right.
When they're saying, please let me take you to the rehab.
Yeah.
You probably need some help.
I'm sorry,
it's all good, man. We can laugh about these things today, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, you know, I made a promise to him. I said, and this is when you know you're in a deep place. So yeah, I said, if I'm still alive by Friday, I'll go into the hospital. Because honestly, I had no plans of keeping that commitment.
Right.
No notes, no nothing. Like I had planned. It was my will to die. It's just that simple. So I go to the hospital and I put myself inpatient.
And how about your plan on the way to the VA?
Oh,
this kills me.
So this is where like drugs and alcohol, you know, it's when we get into SemperFi Mission and what our plans are now, I think this is a great point of contrast, right?
Right.
So this was my life's plan. After 6 years in the Marines, you know, being a sergeant, you know, going through all these things, my whole life, 31 years, this is all I had left, was I was going through withdrawal. I was going through detox. I had warrants out for my arrest. I had, I think, $12 to my name, and I had a black bag of clothes. That wasn't even my clothes. It was a collection of the Salvation Armies and rehabs I had been in and things I had found along the way. And I remember right before I went in, I had a half a joint left. And I hit it. For those of you that are familiar with Oak, I know Chuck is because he goes to VA up there. The VA sits at the top of the hill behind Peterson Event Center, and there's, you know, all the pit fraternities, some of them are there, and there's a generator there. And I literally took this half a joint, man, and I hit it under the generator, and I said, if I don't get into the, because I just tried to kill myself twice. So like, I can't live with drugs. I can't live without drugs. I can't even kill myself. So what is there left to do?
Right.
Well, I had this half a joint, man, and I said, if the VA doesn't take me, I'm going to go smoke this half a joint. I'm going to figure it all out. Like, that's all I had.
that was his plan.
That was my plan.
Grand
That's
scheme.
another level right
Yeah.
there.
I got a half joint left.
Yeah,
That's deep.
If this rehab thing
I mean,
don't
you
work
have to
out.
understand, man, every bridge was burned. It wasn't like, so my mom loved me the whole time. My mom would keep her doors open for me for the most part. But when it gets to the point to where the landlord says, Lori, the cops have been here 7 times because of your son. If you let him back in the house, I'm going to have to evict you and him. She faces a choice, man. You know? And I mean, I literally had nowhere to go. I had been so sick. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I had been to Mercy and Western Psych so many times. And I think I'm pretty sure this is against the law to this day. But I went there and I was homicidal and I was suicidal. And they literally said, Ken, you've been here 13 times. They said, we can't help you. And I said, what do you mean you can't help me? They said, we're not going to admit you. We have no help for you. You need to go to the VA. I said, I can't go to the VA. They said, well, you can't come here. I said, I know if I tell you I'm suicidal and homicidal, you got to take me in. And they said, we're not taking you.
Jeez. Wow.
And I'm like, where do you want me to go?
I told you this is
Where do you want me to go?
insane.
So I would go back out on the streets, man. So needless to say, so I go to the psych floor and I'm up to VA. And that was my grand plan, right? That was the most I could muster on my own power was to smoke this joint and to figure out the rest, right? Because every bridge was burned. I told you I told you what I went in there. My assets, right. were warrants, withdrawal, hopelessness, $12 to $14, and a black bag of clothes. That's what my life consisted of.
And a half a joint.
Actually, a blunt. I would say, to be clear, but half a joint, but whatever it was, a little bit of weed just to help me escape momentarily until I could figure this thing out. Is really what it was. But by the grace of God, like I walk into the VA, I throw my pipe into the trash can. I throw the little pint of vodka I have into the trash can, and it's 8 a.m. and I sit there. And see, there was an incident a couple weeks before that to where they had prescribed me a whole bunch of benzodiazepines. And I went in there and they're like, are you taking them as prescribed? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, you can't come into rehab. You got to go to detox first. So now I'm really scared. So I'm sitting there at 8, man, and I think this was my point of surrender.
Because a benzo withdrawal can kill you.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're like, look, you can't come into the rehab part. You're going to have to go. And I'm like, but you don't understand. My whole life is contingent on a half a joint. Meanwhile, I got warrants. I'm literally, so the week before that, I'm literally jumping in and out of trash cans on the north side because I'm seeing officers and sheriffs ride by. And of course, my mind is saying they know who I am because a couple months before that, I'd been on the top 10 most wanted. So they knew exactly who I was. So this is what my life was reduced to. So I go to I sit there for 4 hours, and at 1 o'clock, the guy comes back and he's like, why are you still sitting here? And I'm like, I'm waiting to get into it's called CTAT. Yeah. And the psych floor, and he's like, oh, no, you're in. He's like, come on. So I go to the psych floor, and it's like the second day. Mind you, at this point, I'm full of fear. I'm full of shame. I'm full of hopelessness, isolation, and despair, man. And I've got nothing. I'm talking about my soul is an empty cave. My soul is an empty cave. And 6 months before that, I was involved in the church. And I was dating a girl, and we were going to church like 5 days a week, and I thought that church was going to save me. Nothing against church. I love church. But I needed some things before I could get ready for church, right? Before I could actually work out my salvation, I first needed to get clean and sober and off the streets. Some needs had to be met first, and that's a big part of SemperFi Mission, no doubt, is meeting the needs. And so anyways, I felt that God had left me, and that's what took me to the point where I could commit suicide. Because I always had an idea of God and Christ, so that gave me some hope, even in the darkest days, even in the cool nights when it's minus 10 degrees and my mom is about to die from hypothermia. I still had faith in God.
Yeah, there's something there.
There's something there, right? Yep. And I was open to that. So needless to say, like, I'm going through withdrawal, and I'm in there on my second day, and I knew that there was no way, if I was going to live this life, and I mean breathe and walk this earth as we know it tangibly to be, that I couldn't do it without God. I needed God to come down.
Supernatural intervention.
I needed supernatural intervention. So I'm going through withdrawal, man. And right before I go to sleep, I say this prayer. I say, God, I can't go on without knowing that you're with me. Because I thought he had left me. I equated God with the church. You see, that was the problem. And that's because the church did leave me in the sense that I was there 5 days a week and for 6 months, and I just stopped showing up and not one person calls. I got guys I sponsor. If they're 5 minutes late to do step work with me, I give them a call. I got veterans that are going through mental health things. If I don't hear from them, I give them a call. It's just part of kind of who we are, right? I think in the Marines, too, we're taught that as well.
No brother left behind.
Yeah, somebody's 5 minutes late to work, you're calling, not to yell at them, but to make sure they're okay, because folks are normally on time. So needless to say, man, I just, before I go to bed, I said,
where you're from, folks are on time. I don't know.
So with the most sincerity I've ever had in my heart, I just said, God, I said, if you're with me, I need you to come to me in a dream and let me know that you're with me and I'm not alone.
It's that dream.
God, if you're with me, I need you to come to me in a dream and let me know that you're with me and I'm not alone. Because I knew I couldn't move forward on my own. I mean, what else? Like I said, you literally try to kill yourself and it doesn't work. What do you, I mean, really, let's talk about being out of options here. Right? I'm out of options.
That's
so I go to sleep and I wake up and guess what happened, man?
You had your dream? No.
Absolutely not.
No,
I did not have the dream.
I know.
I was waiting for the dream.
No. I didn't have
Dreams
the dream.
come to me.
Yeah, that's Chuck, man. I didn't have a dream, right? And honestly, I didn't think too much about it.
Yeah, but that prayer, that thing in your heart where you're just like,
my heart was open.
Out of options.
My heart out of options.
But you was crying out.
Crying out for a savior, right? Let's
God heard
call it what it is. I didn't pray, God, please let me get my VA benefits and let the housing people help me and let all my problems be solved. I said, God, I was reaching out for the truth.
Yeah, come to me.
And that's the key. I think God revealed to me for the first time what I really needed, you see, because my whole time in my addiction, I would say, if I could find the perfect woman to settle me down, I won't be out running the bars, right?
Right.
If I could just get a good job, I'll have some purpose in my life.
Yeah.
If I could get a roof over my head, I won't need to get
If I had the money, if I had the relationship, if I had the purpose, if I had the drive, if I had something to give me something to keep going.
I would be okay. And the fact is, I would get those things and I would be just as empty as I was before.
That's right.
But this time it was different.
Not loving your own life.
Right. I cried out for the one thing I actually needed.
Yeah.
God, that you are with me and I'm not alone. So I go to sleep. I don't have the dream. And honestly, when I woke up, like it wasn't a big deal. Like I really wasn't thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
So mind you, at this point, like I'm a rough looking dude, right? Like I had been on the streets for 6 months. I had been on the top 10 most wanted. I mean, I am bruised up. I mean, I'm not a pretty sight to see. And I still got that Marine in me, to where, you know, I not only do I got to hanging out with gangbangers, but I got to being in Iraq part. So I'm not a guy you really approach. I'm not like, hey, Jimmy, how are you? You know what I mean? You come up and I'm like, yeah, we were scratching serial numbers off like guns to people's throats, man. Like, what you got to say? Like, that's who I was. You know, I know you can relate. So needless to say, man, I'm sitting over there and I'm looking over to Cathedral of Learning because the one corner of the VA on the psych floor, that's where the window faces. And this kid comes over to me. Like I said, I'm not somebody that you just typically approach. Not because I'm so bad and tough, but because I just give off a bad, evil vibe, man.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Unapproachable.
Yeah, like, leave that dude alone.
That's how we would walk. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't approach me. You know what I'm saying?
And
unapproachable.
Exactly. And it's such a different now. We'll get to that. I love the part of the Bible where it talks about only light can drive out darkness and light and darkness can't coexist at the same time.
No fellowship.
Because like now I see me and Chuck, I was thinking about this last night. Just God put it on my, like, you know, we're light carriers. You know that,
no
right?
doubt.
Like literally we're light carriers. Like we're carrying the light.
When we walk into that veterans pod, to watch those guys light up and they're like, hey, our gas is here for the week.
Yeah.
You know, to hear other men say that to you is humbling.
For sure.
You know?
Atmosphere changers.
So let me finish where I'm at. So this kid comes over. I'm just looking out to Cathedral Learning, and I don't even know what I was thinking at that point. I was just sitting there on the vestibule, and I'm looking out, and he comes over to me, and I'd never seen this kid. Obviously, I say kid, but he was a veteran. Obviously, he was on the VA psych floor, and he comes over to me and very abruptly looks at me, and he says, God came to me in a dream last night.
Come on.
And obviously that caught my attention.
Right.
He said, God came to me in a dream last night, and he wanted me to let you know that he's with you and you're not alone. And I said,
Chuck, you got a similar, dude, but you got a similar,
Yeah.
And I looked at him.
Takes what it takes. It takes what it takes.
And I immediately cut him off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
You don't know how to, there's no baseline.
No,
you don't have no baseline.
I'm like, hold up. I'm like, did God, mind you, those are the exact words, to the exact words, God, that you're with me, I'm not alone. And I looked at him, and I needed, you know, doubting Thomas, right? I still need some type of confirmation. And I'm like, so wait. I'm like, did God tell you to just go talk to any veteran? He cuts me off. And he's like, no. And he points at me. He's like, God told me to come to you and let you know that he's with you and you're not alone. And immediately I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace, and I looked at him and I was like, I have to share something with you. Because he had no idea at this point what I prayed for the night before, and I'm still selfish and self-centered, so I'm thinking that God is doing this all for me, right?
And selfish and self-centered.
And I'm like, I prayed for this last night. And he looks at me and he's like, 6 months ago, it's crazy because 6 months ago that happened with me in the church. He's like, 6 months ago, he said, I didn't believe in God, but I started on this journey to find out who God was, and it landed me here. And I'm like, well, how does that land you in the psych floor? But here nor there. He's like, and it landed me here. And I'm like, yeah, I prayed for this. And he's like, oh my God. And I'm like, we just witnessed a miracle, right? He said, this is a miracle. 100%. Literally, this is God coming down on earth. This is a miracle. And man, we're both crying and we pray. And we hit our knees and we pray. So like that was the foundation of my relationship with God right there, knowing that he was with me and I'm not alone. So needless to say, I get out and I make it to the rehab like 10 days later, and February 22nd, 2017, that's my sobriety date. And I'll talk real quickly what it's been like since then leading up to Chuck, right? So like for the next 6 years, like I realized a couple of things. So I work a 12-step program, right? And because I have a faith in God and a knowledge of a working knowledge of Scripture, like I could very clearly see how the 12 steps bring people to God, right? And that's kind of exactly what we talk about all the time. And so like I remember going through recovery and hearing things like, well, my life verse was, but seek Matthew 6:33, right? But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And I leave it there. I don't need the next verse. Like you were saying, I need to lose my life. I'm not giving my life to God because I think I'm going to gain something. I know I will, but that's not why I do it. If that's my motive, for me, I'm going to fall short. I need to do it because I need to pick up my cross and give away my life because I love God, not because of what I'm going to receive. And so like I started going through the steps, and I would read things in both literature, and it would say like, as long as you're doing his work and you're doing it well, he will provide everything that you need. And I saw that for the first 1, 2, 3 years, man. Everybody else was focusing on getting their benefits, getting a job, like the things people need. And I'm just here, man, like, God, you came down and let me know, like, just let your will be done. Like, I just want to seek you. And so like I went from being on the top 10 most wanted to, I eventually ended up getting an internship with a representative, and I immediately became her chief of staff. Like I never wanted to open a business, and sure enough, like God put it in my life. I have a small ATM business, and I go in front of the judges, and my whole life was about lying and manipulating and things like that. And like 4 years later, I found myself being a notary. And like where my documents in court, they're like, oh yeah, this is what this is the standard for integrity and truth. Like Ken notarized it. It's good. It's honest. It's God. And
talk
I'm like,
about redemption,
right?
Yeah.
And like that's just been my whole story. But it's been through seeking God and his kingdom and his righteousness first. And but like I've had many opportunities along the way. Like we started this homeless outreach, and when I say we, I mean me and my girlfriend going down to downtown and to Color Park on the south side. And I literally just helping those because God put it on my heart. One of the verses that touches me more than any others is the parable of the sheep and the goats. Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, when the master there, like he's separating the sheep and the goats, and like the sheep are going one place and the goats are going the other. And essentially, they look at them, and as they realize where they're going, they're like, why are we going here? And the master's like, well, when I was in prison, prison ministry, right? You didn't come visit me. When I was hungry, homeless people, right? You didn't feed me. When I needed clothes, you didn't clothe me. And when I was an immigrant, a neighbor, and lost, you didn't welcome me into your land. And they said, but Father, we never saw you like this. If we would have saw you in prison, we would have visited you. And it goes through the list. And he says, well, whatever you do for the least among these, you do for me.
Because the blood of Christ runs through all of us.
Yeah. And like when I heard that, for whatever reason, like it hit my heart, my mind, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. And anytime I try to do things on my own willpower, me and Chuck were talking about this. I'm lucky because, well, lucky or not, I don't know if I'm lucky or what, but I get some money from the VA because I got hurt in Iraq. We'll just say it that simple, and it's enough to live off of. And I've got the business, but like fear keeps coming in. Like I know that this is my mission, but like here I am reaching out to all these earthly things to try to get what I need, And so what I found in my life is that if I just seek the kingdom of God first and his righteousness through helping the least among these, that's truly my mission here. And now we can start to get into like I feel the meat of the podcast of how radical that really is, right? And in A and NA, like I help people in the rooms, but me and Chuck, we also get to go help people outside of the rooms, right? Like me and Jerry, and we'll talk about that, right? But like I've had a chance to literally, like I go downtown and I see somebody slumped over in a corner. And I see all these people. I go to Christian concerts, right? and at PPG, and literally there'll be somebody slumped outside on the corner, and I'm talking about literally visually 30,000 people walking right past it.
Right.
You know, and for a second I get a resentment, and then I get forgiveness, but I'm like, I know what we need to do, you know, and we'll go there, and that person that's so sick, you know, other people will try to talk to him, and I couldn't relate. When I was going through my addiction, I was homeless in the streets, seeing some of the things we saw. If you were 34-year-old Karen, no offense, from the suburbs, and you're trying to tell me how you've got this wonderful life and how I could come to Jesus, it's hard for me to buy into that.
Come on.
Because you've never been where I've been. You're not speaking my language.
Right.
That's right.
You know? So like when I go down there, the first thing that I say is literally the first thing I tell people is I just want to let you know I was homeless on these same streets 7 years ago. And I'm not here with no church. Once again, that's not bad. I'm not bashing it. Like the church does a lot of good work. But for me, like I need to be out there like the apostles were. I need to be out there with the sick and the suffering. You know what I mean?
I bring this all the time.
Yeah.
Like the church is who killed Jesus.
Yeah.
The religious. Listen, I go off on this.
Yeah.
Because like I said, and Jesus was in the temple courts, and Jesus said, like I said, Jesus said right to him. He said, surely the prostitutes, right, and the criminals and the tax collectors will make it into the gates of heaven before you. And Jesus said that out of his mouth in the Bible, written in red. So I do say that, but I agree with you too. Like I said, that's the ChristYinz mission. Yeah. Listen, I tell Jared all the time, we're reaching our people. Yeah. We're not perfect. We're what the world would call screw-ups. We went down wrong roads. We did what we did, okay? And that's what we're doing, and that's why we got people like you on here, Chuck on here, because we need to let people know, and it is, because whenever I go help out people too, I always start with something similar to that. Now, like I said, I wasn't homeless living on the streets, but I've had my trials and tribulations. I'm like, listen, I'm not with the church. I'm not here like this. I'm here, and you get into it, and you got to touch them and relate to them. But I think that's what, when you're saying like your mission and what you're supposed to do, that's what we're doing as well. We're reaching our people. So God put me through what I had to go through, him, you, so he molded us, and he put us on this planet and gave us the trials and tribulations that we went through and made us who we are so we can touch that crowd. Because there's people that cannot.
He's the potter, we're the clay. He molds us into so that we can be used for what he needs us to do.
But like I said, like look at Joseph, and I bring it up all the time. Like his brother sold him into slavery. Right. You know what I mean? Like he was in jail, all this other stuff. Now, if God, would have said, hey, listen, you're going to be here. You know what I mean? But you're going to go through this, that, and the other. You're like, I don't know. I'm just going to hang out here. Same with Job. Same with Job.
Why did his brothers hate him, though? Because of the favor on his life.
Because the favor right from the beginning. They got jealous of him.
Jealousy, judgment, right? There's favor on his life.
And that's why they sold him off. So, everything great that happened, everyone that was, doing this stuff that God really needed them to do, went through all these trials and tribulations. Even like I said, Moses with the Pharaoh and stuff, God was with him, and he still kept getting banged on and shut down. Then when he freed his people, they were still moaning, complaining, and then they melted down the gold for the calf, and they worshiped someone else. And dude, after Moses freed them, they parted the Red Sea, all this other stuff. So like I said, miracles. Back to your dream. Jared had a dream where someone chased him down and said, bro, I had the dream. Chuck had a dream. I wish I want a dream. I have dreams, but not like anything like that. But I've definitely had stuff come over me, and I've witnessed miracles. Like I've been in ICU. I've been there. I've seen friends have miracles. I know that you're not lying. I know that Jared's definitely not lying. I know that Chuck's not lying. So if I'm around people that I truly believe in, and I just met you, but it doesn't matter because the favor of God is on you, and we're all in here together.
Bro,
like
you,
I said,
you are a miracle.
So 100%. But
it's easy to believe it. But what's Jonathan say? It's easy to believe a miracle when you is one.
Right. So your testimony weighs heavy on me. I'm like, this guy is not lying. I can feel that. So I know what you're saying is true. So now that's another miracle that I had to go. That Ken had a dream. Somebody came up to him and was like, hey, God told me, what you asked for in your dream. Well, you didn't have a dream. He had a dream.
Astronomically, the odds of that occurring.
Yeah.
I don't think it's science.
So here, that's what I say all the time in my testimony. I'm going to just say that so our things are linked together right now. I had a dream, right? And it was to do with my calling, that I was walking up to a building, one person on the east side of me. I was aware I was in a dream. The only way that I could explain the dream is I'm a city boy, right? I don't like the woods. Like I hate the woods, right? So I went out into the woods one time camping, and I guess the fresh air or something did something to me, and I had this crazy vivid dream. And it was like vivid, crazy, so like detailed, high definition. The dream that I had that led me to my salvation and to Jesus saving me blew that dream out of the water times a million, right? It was so real, it was so vivid. And I was walking up to a building, long story short, there was groups of people in there. Everybody came up to me, and I was the owner of everything. I was the man, which I liked in the dream at the time because, you know, my ego, my pride. I was like, yo, this dream is dope. You know what I'm saying? I'm in this dream. I'm the man. I'm the man. I'm the man. And everybody came up to me like, man, what you've built here is so great. The leaders of each group. There were kids playing, people working out, arts and crafts, like so everything you could think of was happening. One person comes up to me, they say the place is great, and then I'm like looking at their eyes, and then I'm like, then I look at head level, and I'm like, man, it's a lot of people. There's a sea of people, right? And then I'm like, that's a lot of people. This must be a big place. This place is huge. I look up again. There's no ceiling. There's no walls, right? And it's all bright white light, and it snaps me up out of my bed. I mean, you know, you watch the movies where like people go like this out of bed, boom, like a springboard, bam.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
I'll get
what
the
was
mind,
that?
which happened too. Yeah,
what was that? You know, and I try to get back into the dream, it didn't happen. So I'm walking around in a fog. You know, usually you have an impactful dream like that. By the time you get about your day and you get moving, you get outside of the house, it leaves, right? That kind of dream will leave you. This one wasn't going nowhere. I'm talking about 3-4 hours later. I'm just like, what was that? What was that? So I'm thinking about this dream. I'm starting to get hungry now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking about the dream and greens and beans. That's what I'm thinking about because there's a restaurant in Swickley called 424 Walnut. My man Joe Piccarelli owns it. Best greens and beans around at that time, right? Classy place. It's packed. Lunch. I walk into the place. Dreams and greens and beans. That's all I'm thinking about. And I see that there's like not really a lot of tables. It's packed. And I'm like thrown off and already, and I'm there like, man, what was that dream? And I hear, yo, Jared. There's a guy who works there. His name's Paul. I don't know him outside of the place. I hadn't been there in a year. You know, we haven't conversated. I don't have his phone number. He goes, yo, Jared. And I'm like, what the heck? He's like screaming in this nice place. That's like out of line. He jogs up to me. And he's like, yo, grabs me like this. He's like, yo, Jared. You ain't gonna believe this, man. I had the craziest dream about you last night.
Right?
And he tells me, bro, the same exact dream that I had.
Wow.
The same dream.
That's crazy.
So if we were talking about chances, right? What are the chances of that? I haven't been in that place. I have this dream. This guy has the same dream that I have. And it's like, it takes what it takes. Like God will get you. He will come and get you for real. And then I said my first 2 hires, you know, when I get the money is going to be,
someone to follow you around.
I'm going to have somebody follow me around with a camera, and I'm going to hire a mathematician too. So I could just like, so people don't
the probability
think I'm crazy.
The
so I could be like, yo, this 1 in a million thing happened. What are the chances of that? Yeah. Then another 1 in a billion thing happens. And then look, you have like 5 or 6 1 in a million things happen to you in a day. Who do you accredit that to? Did you get that on camera? Did you get this? You see this all happening? Right? How do you say that? You at least got to acknowledge that something supernatural is happening.
Well, let's take it. I gotta jump in. Let's take it one step deeper, right? What are the chances now that there's 3 of us, 4 of us, that have all had similar experiences? That probably, no offense, gentlemen, but we all should probably be dead or in jail. To be honest with you.
That's it. There ain't no doubt.
But now we're all
no
here talking about
that.
God. Tell me how that's not of God.
Right. There's something happening. We in the last days, man.
So
He's pouring His Spirit out on us.
I'll give you a short dream thing. It's not mine. But one of my best friends, I told you, I did a couple tours in Iraq and everything. He helped me through in 2020 when I was like living my hell on earth and I hit rock bottom. My man held me down like every single day on the phone, hours a day, whatever. And he didn't believe in God. He just said it was a crutch. You know, you guys understand. He's one of you guys. You know what I'm saying? Has a lot of history and all this other stuff. And just like, he's like, I'm going to hell anyway, this and that. He watched me go through hell on earth. And I kept on talking about God. And I kept pressing in. And I kept picking God over the way I used to live. Like I'm saying, I could have did anything. I could have, you know what I mean? A lot of options, right? And I kept on pressing in. And then I raised up out of the mud, you know. And then he started looking and thinking about it. And he was like, you know, what about this and what about that? And we started talking about it. So the long story short of it is he came to God and he found the church. He's out on the West Coast right now. All right. He he came to God. He started doing his research. He started reading the Bible. He started pressing in. He's asking me what to do. I said, start writing down. I said, start writing down like you're like, you know, it's just goals, but like prayers, like, and give thanks to God. Like, I'm thankful that I have a wife. I'm thankful that I'm business. My business is good. I'm thankful that I'm healthy. No, don't ask him. Just say you're thankful because they're already there. God's going to give them to you. So we started writing this stuff down. He would send me pictures of everything like that. Like, I'm talking like financial distress, specific numbers, specific things. Okay. So he called me one day. He woke up. All right, he had a dream. He's like, dude, you're not going to believe this. He's like, I had a dream, and God came to me in this dream. He's like, I'm telling you, it wasn't a dream. God was here with me.
Right.
He's like, I went on, because he's like a fanatic, tracks his calories, all that stuff, you know. He's like, I went on my Fitbit, and for exactly like 10 minutes, my heart rate is like 180. For exactly 10 minutes, then I popped up out of sleep. He's like, I popped up like crazy. He's like, God talked to me. And he told me so I know him because he's one of my best friends and he's super like reputable, like to me, like he wouldn't lie to me about anything. We're vulnerable, you know, we'll tell each other, you know what I mean? So I knew what his prayers were. I knew what he was writing down. I knew what God said to him in his dream. So he went and did everything to God in a nutshell, everything that God told him to do. Right? He went and started doing. He's like, I'm just going to press in. He's like, it's a lot, but whatever. Dude, and then crazy things from his prayer list started happening. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like, dude, it'd be like, Chuck, if you were like, man, my car just got wrecked and I need $16,372.19. And you know what? And then 3 days later, somebody's like, hey, you just won that exact number. And you'd be like, no.
What are the chances? What are the chances?
So listen, I mean, this is specific stuff that happened. So that got him to press in more and everything. I'm like, this is one of my best friends. Like, this is my guy. Like, you know, and now he's realizing what's going on. So that testimony to me, that's a miracle, and that's something that can't be explained. And I go a lot deeper, but I'm just giving you like the nutshell. So that's a dream. I'm saying, like with me, like I said, as far as like a dream goes. And I say this a lot because people say like God told me this or God told me that. And I'm just like, well, I don't know if it's me. I don't know what the voices in my head are. I don't know the difference. And I haven't heard a loud, audible voice. I haven't had a specific, detailed dream that somebody else knew or that God was talking to me. I haven't heard a voice. But I've had all these feelings, okay, in me. And I move towards them, and I feel like sometimes the things like, you know, they hit me and they seem impossible, and I start pressing in somehow, some way, and it starts working out, and I'm like, that has to be God.
That's
and
God's
I know
voice, right?
We're also tempted too, because the devil can hear what you're saying and stuff like that. So the devil will you know, he doesn't come like a vicious looking monster. You know, he comes as everything that you want. You know, he comes as that brick of heroin. He comes as that pretty girl. He comes of that lottery win or whatever it is, and then you just end up, you know, he'll bring you up just to take it all away and crush you back down.
Anything to distract you from the mission.
And that's what it is. So now,
a man's stomach will be filled by the fruit of his lips, man. So that's why your confession matters, because he can't.
And I've been working on that. So whatever's in your head, I've been trying a lot not to keep it out of my mouth. 2024 started off fasting, you know what I mean? And we're just killing it. And I'm blocking that, and I'm letting good come out of my mouth. And whenever the bad wants to come out, I'm like, we're not going to do that. Right. We're just going to give thanks, and we're going to press in, just like I told my buddy, for the future. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I know that I have a mission too. We're all here on a mission. And you know what? I say this a lot, but the path illuminates as you walk it.
Well, that's what.
All right,
that's scripture.
Yeah, I know that's what I'm. But so I say that because here's the thing: it's like it
gets brighter and brighter until the perfect.
So you don't need to know. So I promise you, the last 4 years, my anxiety, my worry, my everything has went from here to here, and I really trust in the path of God, and I trust where I'm going. So like I said, the path illuminates as you walk it. Do I really know where the end is? No. But on this journey, all I'm trying to do is like self-mastery, be the best me. I'm trying to like get the right people around me. I'm trying to do what God wants me to do. I'm trying to pull people out of the pit. And as long as I do that, like you were saying, you're seeking God first and everything else like that, then I know that I'm going to be on the right mission, the right journey, and I'm going to get to where I need to go. And I start worrying about all this other stuff. And anybody that's in my life on a day-to-day basis, from you to Melissa to, like I said, my boy Jason, to, you know, even Chuck, who's around me, like people are like, I see big, huge differences in you. And even and I'll testify to the difference that I seen in you too. It's like the word of God, when you started pressing into the Bible, right? The word is a lamp unto our feet and it lights our path, right? So as you press into the word of God, that changes everything. We don't go anywhere without that thing. Right.
Amen.
Amen.
And man, can I jump in on the dream?
Yeah.
And
Of course you can, Chuck. Jump in there, boy.
I know your dream.
The people need to hear it, man.
I'm chomping at the bit here.
Let the people know.
And
Give
this
it to
is
them.
out of order because I wanted to give a little backstory. But when you talked about popping up, when you talked about your friend popping up, when you talked about that guy coming to you, and you guys know my story, how Jonathan came to me in a dream and called me back to church and called me to the Lord. And on a side note, when you get these dreams and when you get these messages, I think where you honor God is when you obey.
Quick obedience.
Quick obedience to it. And I'll go back to when I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. I was in the Montour Junction Sports Complex, the very first service they had in there. When I walked in there, I wasn't serving, I wasn't ushering, I wasn't security. Laura can even testify. Like that day, I'm in a sports complex and I just felt the presence of God. I could not raise my hands high enough. I could not pray hard enough. I could not worship enough.
You had a white shirt on. I'll never forget that, bro. Like the Lord highlighted you. I was like, what is on? I was like, I said, that dude's important. As soon as I seen him walking out his car, there was something on him where I was like, the Lord just highlighted him. And I was just like, who is that guy? He's special. That's what I felt as soon as I seen him.
And Ken, Jared and I had never met. I'd seen him in church, and I was drawn to him because I remember the first time you came to 107 Patton, you kind of prostrated yourself and were praying, and I was like, wow, look at that guy, you know. And I love it that we all don't look like the norm. You know what I mean? With the tats, with that, you know, and knowing our background now. But there was something about it. But so I go into the Montour Junction Sports Complex. I'm pressing into the Lord. It was towards the end of the service. Like they had done the altar call, they'd done everything. And Pastor John was just walking around like he normally does. And he was across the room and he's like, I was in the third row. He's like, Brother Chuck, step out in the aisle. The power of God's all over you. He said, I'm going to baptize you in the Holy Spirit. And as he's walking towards me for the first time, as he extended his arm, I fell out. And, you know, I know that wasn't the norm. I didn't see it. I started seeing it in revival today, but I've never been in churches where people fall out. I've always thought people push those people over, you know. I remember falling back on the AstroTurf, and that's when God audibly spoke to me. And I looked over my shoulder, Ken, and there was a hand. And God told me, touch this hand, I have a gift for you. And when I grabbed that hand, which happened to be Jared, I got baptized in the Holy Spirit and began praying in tongues like, Lord, I mean, verbally screaming, and I got a loud voice, and my stomach was moving. I know Rick was with us, right? And he said, I thought Chuck was having a seizure.
Yeah.
But the point of that is,
let me say where I was with that.
Yeah, let's get your end of that.
How my hand ended up there was Jonathan was preaching. He was like, there's going to be a time in America and in this church when I can't lay hands on everybody. You're just going to have to receive the Holy Spirit. I'm not doing it. It's God doing it. And I was just like, I hit my knees in agreement with the shepherd of the house, right? I felt to just be in agreement with that. So I hit my knees in agreement, and I started praying in tongues. Like the Holy Ghost, it was me, man. It just started flowing out of me. And I had my hand extended, not knowing that you were in front of me.
Right.
I was just like this, agreeing with the shepherd of the house, right? And then when he said, Chuck, the power of God's, I didn't know that you were right in front of me, bro. My eyes weren't open.
Again,
my head was down and my hands were out.
This.
And he was right there. And then when I opened my eyes right before he grabbed my hand. And I was like, glory to God, what is that? And he grabbed my hand and it was just like, boom, like that. It was like something went like this. Bam, like it was like strength. It just hit me. And I couldn't say like I felt anything else, but just like it was the presence. I can't say and I came to and I looked up and my whole row of people that I brought to church with me were out. You're not allowed to do. I didn't know you're not allowed to do this because I ain't churched, right? I don't know the rules of church. Like you're not allowed to pray for. You're not supposed to pray for people in a church, right?
Right.
Because the
or lay hands on them. Right.
And I don't know, but that wasn't me who did it. I was down, but my people followed me. Right, my whole row was like, "Oh snap! Something Jared's into something," and they all were like, "Yo, we got to get with Jared. Let's do what Jared's doing." And they were all They were laying hands on like extending their hands, and then somebody came around and was
Kofi.
Like, "Somebody
Pastor
came."
Kofi. He's like,
"It wasn't."
Let him go.
Oh, was it Kofi? It was one of the other guys. Yeah, and he came over. He's like, "Y'all can't be doing that," and I was like, "I didn't do nothing."
and Kenny, I'm laying on the ground speaking in this, and I can't stop it. It feels glorious. Yeah. to pray in this is coming out of me, and the tears were just
Crazy.
flowing out of my eyes.
It's powerful
but
stuff.
The whole point of that was obedience to God when he speaks, which I'll fast forward, since, it's been 2 years now since we started coming to revival, right? And how my life has changed and how I've followed God, and, and how Ken and I bonded and met, and his outreach stuff, my outreach stuff, the stuff that I was doing with Revival Today Veterans Brigade and going, starting to reach. But with my background, and what I've found is even going to the Veterans Pod, even when we went down to the city last spring, it was more than veterans. We're reaching more than veterans. Even on the Veterans Pod, only about 50% of the guys there are veterans. So as Ken and I get to know each other.
Wait, we got to tell the story real quick on that, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
once again, we keep talking about, I see a theme here, like astronomical probabilities that are never astronomical probabilities unless you're God or Christ, right? That's the only way it could be done. So
this is so cool.
Chuck was going to a meeting that I go to, and I agree with you when you said you saw Chuck and he had a certain light about him. Mm-hmm. When I first saw Chuck at the meeting, he went, I think, twice when I saw him. I knew he was a veteran up at the Dom. And he came to the meeting twice. And honestly, I never told you this, but this is probably a good time to say this. When I first saw Chuck, I didn't like Chuck very much at all, because I thought, Chuck, I'm like, man, you're in the Dom rehab and you're acting like you're all this hot stuff. Like, who? But he just had this glow about him. You know what I mean? Like, I really was starting to consider, like, is Chuck a plant there by the government to spy on the other veterans?
I did do some undercover work.
Because he just doesn't seem like he fits in with this group, right? Like, how did he just get it? Like, we all struggle to get the spirituality stuff from recovery. We worked the steps through a lot of prayer, meditation, and word and scripture, but Chuck just had that from the beginning, man. I couldn't explain it. And so I saw him twice, and I think I might have said hi or something like that.
Yeah,
like
we shook hands.
Yeah, like I do.
Marine, SemperFi.
Yeah, exactly. Something very, very simple Marine Corps communication, introduction to each other. And I go home, and meanwhile, because of everything that had happened, I hadn't talked to my sister since 2011. I had just started to talk to her again, and I'm talking about, like, on Facebook, hey, I'm glad to see your kids are doing well. Like, no conversations of substance, right? But just, we're finally breaking the ice to build a relationship again. Randomly, I get this message, this Facebook message. Hey, there's a guy like you that has a story just like you, a Marine. He's in Lawrenceville cutting hair at a place called Diesel. You two should go talk. And I'm like, well, how did you know this? He's like, well, I have a friend up here that was talking to me about it. And I said, hey, my brother's just like that too. This was like 400 miles away
in Lancaster.
In Lancaster, PA. So I had not really, other than saying hi at a meeting, I had no idea who Chuck was, what he was about. I randomly get this message to go see this Marine that has a story similar to mine and is trying to do things like me. Now, that in and of itself is kind of coincidental, but the fact that it happened from two people 400 miles away that didn't know us, like, the girl that I was talking to him didn't know me, and my sister didn't know Chuck. It was just, hey, you need to go down here and meet this guy randomly 400 miles away. God put it on these people's heart to send a message to me to go down there.
Sheesh.
And so I meet Chuck, and it's like, I can say this is all I really need to say. For some reason, whenever me and Chuck are together, it's like the ignition and the combustion, right?
Right.
Like, I got the combustion and Chuck got the ignition, and I'm talking about my soul, my spirit. That's what I'm speaking to. Mm-hmm. Like, anytime I see Chuck and I'm talking about faith, it's weird. It's like it's being redirected directly at me, and it just increases my faith.
I call that the boomerang. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
Boom, you put it out, and it comes right back at you.
And it goes both ways, Ken. I don't know how many times, Laura, have I said, man, Ken was in. Oh, my God. He gets me so fired up. I get so excited about this, about that, and,
But 400 miles away in Lancaster.
Yeah.
A guy that you already saw. God spoke to somebody.
God spoke to his sister through someone that knew me. We still don't know
who that person is.
Was.
Yeah. Hey, if you're out there, let us know, because you're part of this testimony. We want you on the podcast.
It's probably someone that I knew from the Philly area.
Yeah.
It might have been church related, or it might have been, through who knows what my circle was.
How many times can you say, oh, that's a coincidence? Like over and over. You could be like, oh yeah, that's just a coincidence. But you can't say that's a coincidence this time and this time and this time and this time, and like, it doesn't stop. The miracle, like, it doesn't stop. It just don't stop.
I learned a long time ago, and we said it earlier, and I'm 100% believer in this. Like, I have full faith. This is the truth, man. Like, coincidences or just God acting anonymously.
I like that.
Like I don't question it anymore.
Yeah.
Like there was a point in time where maybe and here's the difference, talking about Chuck and what you guys were saying, like once we get the word to be obedient and to go on mission on that, like I don't question these things anymore.
That's
to the
right.
point some people may be like, Ken's a little loopy.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I got a girlfriend in my life and she'll probably see this. Like she goes along with all of it because the
That's
Lord's
it. That's
touching
key.
her too.
That's
key. I come home and I'm like, me and Chuck are starting a nonprofit, and she's like, okay, baby, I support you.
That's
You know?
fine. That's great.
It's like, babe, I'm quitting my job to like focus on this ministry. Okay, we'll make it through. Faith in Jesus,
but
you know.
hey.
It's just, and we talk about that, man. Like
That was the most Pittsburgh faith in Jesus I ever heard about.
Yeah, man.
I love that Pittsburgh accent.
I mean, here's the thing. I got to say this real quick because I know we're getting into the SemperFi Mission part.
Yeah.
Like me and Chuck, we had a conversation the other day. I just got home and I was in my car and I pulled up to the side of the road and the Holy Spirit just came upon me, and me and Chuck had this 45-minute yelling at each other, preaching the gospel and preaching about faith. And what it hit me as was, after Jesus goes down to the Decapolis, right? He goes down there because two of the apostles had given a parable that they really weren't thinking how it was going to affect everybody.
And they stirred up the different groups.
Yeah,
right?
started up the different groups, right? So Jesus is like, okay, so this is, he sends the 12 out to go to cast demons out, to heal the sick, to give sight to the blind. They come back. Everybody's pretty good, right? But these two come back and they're like, Jesus, we think we started some problems, you know?
Yeah.
And so Jesus is like, okay, we're
the Jews and the Gentiles.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And the pagans too were part of that.
Right.
So, he's like, all right, we're going to go down there and fix it. So he goes down there to fix it. Needless to say, it turns into one of the sermons, right? And that leads to so many people come, they're there for a couple of days. They don't have food, right?
Yeah.
And we good? Excuse me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. So
I told you we'd be talking.
Yeah. So they don't have. They're running low on food, right? And this is where the story of the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000 is, right? And so, like, mind you, the apostles, like, they're running around, they're asking people who has food, where can we get food? And eventually they get the 2 fishes and the 5 loaves of bread, right? And then Jesus goes and does what Jesus does and makes miracles happen.
Oh, Jesus-like.
Yeah, Jesus-like.
Oh, Jesus-like.
And immediately they get enough food to feed 5,000, right? And so later, they're about to be on their way home, and he's like, hey, a storm's coming. You guys should take the boat to get there faster. Mind you, Simon is a fisherman, right? And he's like, I'm going to go and pray, right? And so he goes off and does his thing to pray, and they're in the boat, and then that's when the storm comes. So mind you, they've just witnessed, first of all, they've witnessed a ton of miracles.
Right, yeah.
But they are literally within 24 hours of witnessing the feeding of the 5,000, and they're in the boat, and Simon's going through some things, and God knows that, Christ knows that in his heart, and they're in the boat, and Jesus, bam, lightning, Jesus appears on the water, right? He's walking on water, and he's like, Simon Peter's like, come to me. And the rest of the disciples are like freaking out, right? They're like, "Don't do it! You're gonna drown. The
water's gone."
I would like to say, like, if it was me, I would have been like, because like you said, you witness all that. You're riding with him. That's your leader.
Not hearing it, not reading it.
Well, and if he appeared, I would have been like, yeah, like in my head. Well, because I got faith now that was a lot different than before. But like, I'd be like, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
If I was rolling with Jesus and he was out on the water and said, come, I would like to think that I would, and I don't want to like upset him or anything like that, because like maybe he's like, no, you wouldn't. But like, I would like to think, right, after witnessing all that, you would.
Like here, you know what? I hear you, but here's the kicker to that, right? So I like to think that too, right? Yeah. And me and Tori, so faith has been the theme in our life for like the past month, ever since we started SemperFi Mission. SemperFi, didn't think about it until last night. Always faithful.
Faithful.
Right?
So
always faithful.
It's in the name.
So, Tori, once again, like we have more, that God has blessed us. We have more than what we need. And I was taught, I've been heavy on this story, right? So they're in the boat. Jesus tells them to come. They're all scared. Simon eventually walks out, right? But it's like, how many times have I been the disciple in the boat, right? To where I literally saw Jesus feed 5,000, but here I am questioning about walking on water. And so, like, my car was in the shop, and we're going to this thing that God has called me to do, this outreach for Narcan training, overdose prevention, right? This was Sunday at a church, of all places. And one of the few outreaches, we do 2 churches in that. Some congregations welcome us in. So we're there, and we go in, and Tori's check engine light comes on, and Tori's she's crying, she's emotional. She's like, man, she's like, all this money, like we're bleeding money. You know, how are we gonna do this? Meanwhile, I'm full with the Holy Spirit. I'm filled with the Holy.
I love it.
And I'm going through the parable, and I'm telling her, and you can see it's kind of getting through. So we go in, and I meet the pastor. His name is Pastor Clark, and he comes over, and Tori's there, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a point of this, right, just to help Tori with her faith. So I start telling the pastor that we start talking about the story, right? And I say, how many times have I been the apostle in the boat after seeing 5,000? And Jesus is like, do you remember what you just saw? And you know what my response is? But Jesus.
Yeah, right.
But the check engine light is on. The check engine light is on. Jesus, how can I get through this? You know? Or the light bill is past due, or the boss didn't give me a raise. You know? But meanwhile, I just saw 5,000, and it's not just that. Let's talk about the miracles we experienced.
Right.
You know? I'm talking about with SemperFi Mission. This thing is going to be ran off faith. When Jesus said, you say to this mountain, move, and if you got faith like a mustard seed, it moves. I'm talking about, I'm going downtown, and I'm expecting, if my faith tells PNC building to move, it better move. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about
You
living
can
on
move
faith
mountains,
like
baby.
that. And,
You got faith, you can move
that's what
mountains.
SemperFi Mission is becoming about, man. Like I said, Chuck, and when we were yelling at each other for that 45 minutes, I think I was doing most of the yelling because the Holy Spirit was on me. I said, Chuck, we better be careful, man. Not careful. I said, we better be prepared. Go back to Ephesians, put on the full armor of God, because I feel God's hand is on this mission that we're doing. And if we're doing that, we better be prepared, because the evil one is going to come. You see what I'm saying? Thieves don't come to steal. We said this earlier. Thieves don't come to steal vaults that are empty, my friend.
Right.
These come to steal vaults that are full, full with the
100%.
power of God, full with the Spirit of God, full with the message of God to reach those that are in the darkness. Because we're carrying the light. And so, like, it's just crazy. Like, that's where I'm getting at with my faith. Like, I'm talking about the mortgage company comes along and says, you know, you paid all your bills, but we've gone bankrupt. We're taking your house, and there's 100 shares. And I'm talking about, I say, praise God.
Hey, right?
Because I got somewhere to be. That's what I'm talking about, right? And I'm talking about, like, we all here collectively, me and Chuck in this mission, we've been through so much. Like, really, we are the parables in the boat. Like, I'm tired of being in the boat and talking about the wind. I'm talking about look at Jesus, man.
Step
what do we
out.
do with that?
Come on.
Step out.
You know? And so, like, one of the greatest things about this message, and hopefully this is where we can talk about Jerry, right? Is that one of the greatest gifts God has given me is that he has turned, the greatest value I bring to this earth is my testimony, man.
Right.
The greatest value I bring is my going through the darkness, sharing that with somebody's in the darkness and telling them how I made it to the light.
Now, when you hear that James chapter that says,
1:12.
consider pure joy.
My brothers and sisters, when you face trials of any,
when you first hear that, you're like, no.
No, I don't want that. Right.
But when you see
I didn't sign up for that.
I didn't wake, like, my situation and circumstances will not move me today, right? That's how your faith gets built up to be perfect. Right, and that's where you're at, bro.
Right,
and that's the difference. But that's the difference in living in Christ. Like I said, it is, and that's why I like my testimony. I tell it to myself every day. I'm like, what you went through, everything. You're going to reach people. People are going to be able to, connect with you, and you're going to change others' lives. You're going to change their mindset. Where a lot of other people, like I said, they're just chasing the bag. A lot of people are just their goals are all financial. Where your goal should be to be a better person. Your goal should be to help as many people as you can. If you're out of the pit, pull them out of the pit. But like I said, that's what Jesus does. When Jesus comes on you, you surrender your life to him. You ask him for help. That's where it's at. And just to bring this back, when we're talking about faith, and you're talking about the parable of the boat and everything. All right. So we started Christians last Easter, and then we came out swinging. Right. We had the coat over there, switching the cameras. And we were just doing good. Then Jared got busy. What would he got busy? I got busy with what I got busy. Distractions. He got hit with some bad stuff. I got hit with some bad stuff. We couldn't make it on time. We're both scrambling just for the flesh and things of our lives, right? We're trying to fix problems. We're trying to do this and that. Fell off. Came back a little bit. Then we fell off again. And that's when I was like, I was just sitting here thinking a lot of stuff has been going sideways for me here and there. And I'm just like, whatever. And you know what? My life's on fire right now, and I don't care. I have the full armor of God on me. I have full faith, and I say, you know what? Whatever happens, I don't care, because I know what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm supposed to save people, pull them out of the pit, whatever I'm supposed to do with my mission, just like you guys have your mission. We have our mission. And I was like, all right, Jared, we need to get back on this. And I really felt it in my soul. Maybe that's God speaking to me. Maybe that's whatever. But I feel it in me that, like, this is the most important thing Glennie, the most important thing you can do is help others. Help others. And you know what? I'll supply you. You need a facility?
Right.
Listen, I'll supply. You'll get a facility.
Right.
You'll get the money to do it.
That's right.
You're going to figure out how to do this your way. And me and Jared and I started doing this again. And I said, brother, we're staying consistent. But I'm filled with the Holy Ghost fire for this mission and other stuff that we're doing. The Blessed Home Project, I'm filled with fire for that. So when I give thanks and I praise, and now you guys are going to be incorporated in it too because we're connected. I pray for Jonathan, you know, what he's doing because like I said, that night that I met you down there at Still City Fest, when I heard Jonathan preach and I was just glued to him and I was like, this is amazing. And there was thousands of people there and they were just, you know, on him just like I was. And at the end when he prayed for people, he touched hands. He laid hands on everybody. Remember that night?
Yeah,
it was like a rock concert, brother. The screens were up, the stage. We had Uchi with the band, bro.
Right.
They were going. And Jonathan's just going through. Cameras are following him. It's dark. We're in the middle of the city, right on the water. And he's just praying forever. People are falling out. People are crying. And it's just bananas. And that went on for like an hour, it felt like, at least. And I was like, this is where I need to be. But like I said, and then I got to meet you. And then me and Jared teamed up. Now we're doing this. Now you guys just look at how God's working in this era of life
in Pittsburgh,
in the city, but in the world too. So this is what we're doing.
See it everywhere.
So this was supposed to happen today, 100%, because you've touched me already. We got a half hour to still go with us, and we're gonna get out as much as we can. Chuck, we're gonna have to get you in again because we got to hear. I just want to go, you know, with all your stuff and ask you a bazillion questions, but we still got a half hour left.
Yeah, I want to get to this dream because that's going to be the theme of how this all came forward.
Hey,
so the
you guys got
backstory-
30. You guys got 30 minutes. Look, clock up there.
Got it.
Get to it. It's your show.
All right, so Ken and I connect. I'm doing some things with the church, some things with the Veterans Brigade. Ken's doing some things. He's with Tori. He's down in the city. We go down in April and going down to 6th and Smithfield on the steps of that church with the rainbow fish up there and praying over people and we came to the steps and we're like, does anybody? First they thought we were 5-0 because everyone had like camo pants and black shirts on, and I'm like, no, I'm just here to tell you about
some
Jesus.
of us used to be 5-0, so that's a fair assessment.
Right? So God put it on my heart, and then y'all know what I do with the barbershop, and Laura, you could testify to this. People that are begging for money at the tunnels coming into the city. I don't know how many people I stop, pray with. Hey, come to my shop. You know, I could sit here and I could go through my Rolodex from last year and show you dozens of people that I've scooped off the street. And I like that one time, Ken, we were together. I think
I know exactly what you're talking about. Waterworks.
Yeah, Waterworks.
Yeah.
We were driving some veterans back to the Dom. We had taken them to church for the day. Ken was with us. We'd gone to revival today, and there was a guy for money, and the guy's in the car like, oh, what are you going to do? And Ken's like, I'm going to pray for him and give him money because what if that's Jesus?
Oh, yeah. So that's when you said that, that's what I was like. So, you know, being affected, I was homeless.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, I have the ability to like make a pretty good judgment. Somebody's just panhandling. Like, I know what it's like when you're really homeless. You have a certain look about you. You have an aura about you. You're not, you know, if you're out there homeless, you don't have brand new Nikes on. Like, there's a couple of indicators, right? And, so I caught myself judging sometimes and not wanting to give money away, right? And then immediately went to like all the scriptures in the Bible about judging, right? But really what it took me to was back to that, what you've done for the least among these. He's clear. Yeah. He said, you've done for me. And so like it just hit me one day. Me and Tori were driving past a homeless person and Tori was like, he doesn't look homeless. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? I ain't taking a chance that that's Jesus, man. Like, I ain't willing to bet on it. Like, I ain't willing to keep this $2 in my pocket.
Like the woman at the well.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I ain't trying to miss it neither.
Yeah, right? and get up there and Jesus be like, hey, man, you did great those 99 times. Yeah. But remember that one time you were judgmental? That was actually me. Like, I don't know about you all, but I'm not taking my chance. When Jesus says, what you do for the least among these, you do for me.
I love that, bro.
I'm not taking a chance that ain't Jesus. That's just me. You walk how you want. I'm coming out my pocket every single time. I don't care if I only got a 20 and I want to give him a 1, then guess what? That 20's got to go, man, because I ain't taking a chance. I am not taking a chance.
I'll tell you a story after this, but always, whenever I come back from Squirrel Hole a lot, I always purposely take the Grand Street exit right there. Sure. You make the left, and they got the tents right there. Yep. And I actually know some people's names from stopping there, and it's like if I don't have cash on me, I don't have cash on me a lot, but if I do, I'm like I gotta find somebody who. And then, dude, and seriously, normally it's like raining and stuff, and I'm like, dude, they're definitely, whatever it is,
Yeah. And Jared, or Ken ruined me after he put that in my head.
Yeah.
I think that all the time when I see these people, like, I'm not stopping today, and shame on him, and he's a grown man, and no, come over here, let me pray for you. There's a different way.
Yeah.
And then and then a couple dollars to them.
And the Bible also says you will be judged by the measure that you judge others too.
That's a good one. I
have all these notes.
I'm not trying to be up in heaven and him running. I'm not saying he has a TV screen, but like, remember that we'll be using that to judge you today. No, thank you.
And I don't want to be that. And so over the last 2 years of doing this and bringing people and directing people,
you got the guy a haircut. That's where you were going to bring you back.
Yeah,
the guy we met up at the corner. He didn't want to come at first. And then go ahead.
And so we go to this guy, and I give him a card and said, "Hey, bro, if you ever, it was hot out, right? It was August, something. It was,
his hands were all blistered up from shooting heroin.
Yeah. And I said, if you ever want to just come get cleaned up for the day, just give me a call. Week later, I pick him up, bring him up to the shop, get him cleaned up, pray over him. And that's what led me and Jared to that. I picked him up from a homeless camp, which led Jared came to the prison with me. And then the prison was locked down that day. So Jared's like, let's go pray for people on the street. I'm like, I know where to go.
Yeah.
We'll go where I picked Ryan up yesterday, and we went there. So all these these are a handful of the tiny stories of where with you, where we've gone out and touched people and picked them up. And Glennie, you're gonna get a picture. I'm gonna send you a screenshot of our SemperFi Mission logo.
Yeah.
And it's literally one guy pulling another guy up a mountain with the cross.
I know Glennie loves that.
Leading one brother, sister, reaching down, pulling them up, and leading them to Jesus. That's what this came from. So fast forward till November. All this prison ministry, Chuck didn't go out and solicit for this. They called me. Chuck, would you come in? I'm like, who? Yeah, okay. I'll come into the prison. I'll talk. Hey, will you come back next week? Hey, will you make it a regular? Do you go back? That's my only day off every week. Monday. Where do I go? To ACJ. Why? To lift that next person up, to bring them. And to one of the points that you made earlier, Glenn, where we have experienced this stuff that makes us relatable to people. So I brought a young Bible school student from RBTI in to preach to the prison. So he starts off and he's talking, and one of the young boys that I'd never met, it was his first time sitting in with us, first thing he says is, what do you know, man? You never been here. You don't know what it's like.
Right.
And I was like, hold on 1 second. Yo, I know what it's like. Not only have I been here physically on this pod, I've also been in the State Correctional Institute in solitary confinement for months. So I know exactly what you're going through right now. And that just softened him. So by our testimonies, to be able to share that, to open them up to the gospel is amazing. So all this stuff's happening. November.
Can I jump in real quick and say something about our testimonies happening? So, and this is a big part of the ministry. That's why I want to say it right now before we move on and I forget. But, my record and my past in and of itself is just that. It's a criminal record, and it's a past. And mine's not that bad. I don't have any felonies. I'm thankful. That was God's grace long before I knew God's grace existed.
Right.
When you got a charge sheet that's 7 pages with 30 felonies, but you got 0 felonies, and a public defender's, God is working somewhere in between it.
No doubt.
For sure.
But what I'm saying is, in and of itself, on my own resources, it's just a rap sheet. It's just my record, and it's a bad past and a problem with drugs. That's all that people see, right? But when God comes in, He is the only one that can turn that mess into the message.
Right. Wash it clean.
The mess into the message. Of my own power, I can't do that.
Right.
Of my own power, I'm just Ken, who has some trouble with drugs. Yeah, he was a Marine. He's got some criminal record. I'm just Ken with that. But you bring Jesus into this thing, and all of a sudden, the darkest past becomes the brightest light and hope for somebody who can't see a way out.
Your future's so bright, I got to put sunglasses on.
Right. He's signing, bro.
Only God can turn the mess into the message. I just wanted to throw that in there because that's a big part.
And that's huge.
That's on the doorstep with Jerry, but we'll get there. Yeah.
So I have 4 days in a row This is still with having the barber schedule and all this kind of stuff. 4 days in a row, the week of Veterans Day, I'm called into four different prisons settings. One of them being Veterans Court, but we'll call that a prison setting because these guys are sentenced there to Veterans Court. I invite Ken in. I get to hear Ken's testimony. So I want to
throw this in there too real quick. This is important to note for the record. So Chuck is like, hey, I'm going to Veterans Court. You mind just saying a couple words to them? That's what I was given. You want to say a couple words to Veterans Court. I get there, and it's their celebration of completing the program after 2 years, and I'm the keynote speaker. That's a little bit more than just saying, "Oops, 2 words." Yeah.
But I had already heard him. I heard him
because you remember me. I said, "Wait." I said, "Chuck." I said, "Is this their 2-year graduation? Like this is it? This is
yeah.
Oh yeah." And I'm like,
man.
Okay, all right, let's go.
So we have this week. I hear Ken. We go to the Veterans Pod. We get invited to the Juvenile Pod. We're getting people saved, people coming to the Lord. I hear more of his testimony. I surreptitiously invite him into Veterans Court. I get to hear him be the keynote speaker. He just the courtroom was quiet. The judge came over afterwards. Oh my God, Ken, it was powerful. You know, his message of hope and strength to these people that are just getting out of a program. 2 days afterwards, middle of the night, I'm having a dream. In my dream, I stand up, and there's a huge prison crowd. Everyone was in blue, like one of these things you see from a TV set, right? Where there's hundreds of prisoners. Now, earlier that week, I went by myself to the State Correctional Institute in Mercer. And I was able to be the keynote speaker for their Veterans Day. There was 104 veterans plus the entire staff there. That. Over half of them got saved that day.
I remember.
So this is a few days later. I'm on a spiritual high from this, right? I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm making an impact. I'm bringing people to the Lord. So in my dream, I stand up, and in my soft voice, in my outside voice, I'm like, gentlemen, my name is Chuck, and this is my brother Ken. And I looked down, and Ken sat right next to me. I said, we're here, and we represent the SemperFi Mission, and we're here to lead you to the Lord and give you hope. And I sat straight up in bed. And look, I got goosebumps right now. I sat straight up in bed, and the Lord spoke to me. That's what I want you to do. That's what I want you to call it. I want you, with Ken, to have the SemperFi Mission. I couldn't stop it. I picked up my phone. I Googled SemperFiMission.org. Guess what? It's available. And SemperFi is very popular.
It's actually trademarked by the United States Marines.
Right.
And everything after that is pretty much trademarked by somebody. But somehow, Mission, which is synonymous with the military.
Yeah, exactly. It's the military and the mission of Christ.
Was available.
Right.
Before the need arises, I have already provided.
Yes. Amen to that, Jared. So here I am sitting up in bed, 2:30 in the morning, SemperFiMission.org. I'm dumbfounded that it's available.
Well, that's the same thing with Christians.
Yeah. Yeah. And I call Ken the next day. Ken, God put this on my heart. And, you know, hearing your dream, that dream, there's absolutely no question in my mind that the Lord speaks to us through dreams. Mm-hmm. I've had 4 in my life. Those are going to be for another broadcast. But what really solidified, so we start kicking around, okay, this is what we could do. This is what our mission could be. We came up with 4 different goals. We came up with a mission statement. But then the day after Christmas, this all came to a head.
So I think it's important, like, to understand how we got here, right? So me and Chuck both are led on our own path through desperation and despair. God comes in, right, in a remarkable way, saves us. Jesus saves us, puts it on our heart, gives us the ability based on our past to turn the mess into the message. So we're actually doing the work. Chuck is doing his thing with revival. Chuck's doing his thing going into the prisons. I'm going downtown, literally trying to find the person that everybody is walking past. And I'm talking about bringing them to the house, taking them a shower, praying with them, taking them out to eat. But literally, you know, we try. This is our goal, right? The parable of the Good Samaritan. Mm-hmm. If I go down and I pray with you downtown, that's cool. You know, I prayed for you. Yeah. I've kind of done my duty as a Christian. But the Good Samaritan, he goes a lot further than that. We know that parable, right? And who walks past him? The Levite,
the priest.
And the priest, right? And it's the Good Samaritan who was looked down by everybody, the drug addicts, those with tattoos and that, right? It was that one who was actually doing God's will, right?
Right. Yeah.
By helping them and showing them mercy and grace that the Father gives us.
I would guess he knew something about it, though, probably, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, right? So all that comes, and Chuck has this dream, and I'm on fire, and I'm going through my own process of having faith to where, like I said, I was in government and politics for a while, and I have this self-centered fear, right, that I need to stay connected, because what if something happens and my needs aren't met?
Right.
Once again, I'm the dude in the boat talking about, but Jesus, my check engine light. You know, that's who I am. I'm Jesus, my check engine light. God's like, I moved 50 mountains for you.
Right.
When you couldn't even
still
walk.
doubting me.
And you're like, but my check engine light, Jesus, right? And so I'm going through my own struggles, and I'm reaching out about getting back into the political stuff, into the government stuff, and God just drills it into my heart. He's like, look, I gave you all this so you can do this work. Like, this is the mission right here. So, like, the doubt is there, but the faith is there, and Chuck's there too, right? And then the day after Christmas happens.
Right. Day after Christmas. I'm in contact with, you heard my phone. There's a lot of people, and Laura could testify to this. People are calling all the time. Hey, you know, people that I've met in prison. We've got 7 guys that were in Allegheny County Jail that are now in either a Christian recovery home or a veterans recovery home I'm helping to mentor, that I'm bringing to church, that I'm picking up, that I'm taking to lunch. And again, I don't know how I'm going to do all this, and sometimes it gets overwhelming. But it just keeps happening. It keeps happening. So the day after Christmas, I get a text message, and this young lady says, "My brother is in trouble. He lives in Etna. He texted our family yesterday, and he says that he was hungry, that he had nothing to eat. It was Christmas Day. He had nothing to eat. I have to go into the barbershop. I go into the barbershop, do a couple haircuts. It's weighing on me. Actually, what had happened is the second I read that message, who was the first person I called? Ken, we got a dude in Etna. He happens to be a veteran, but he's struggling. People didn't hear from him yesterday. He doesn't have any food. You got to go with me. And Ken had some doubt. I had a little bit of doubt, but I'm like, no, we got to go. We got to go. Ken worked out what he had to work out.
To be clear, not doubt over whether or not we should go, but doubt over whether or not we were actually going to be able to get him the help that he needed. Because oftentimes people were resistant. And going back to our point this whole time is like, if somebody's coming to me and they've never been where I've been at, it's really hard to literally pull somebody out of I'm talking about pulling people out the trap house. Pulling people right there off the streets. Right. I'm talking about Satan. You can see the marks on their neck from Satan.
Yeah.
Physically, figuratively, literally,
spiritually.
I'm talking about those type situations. You know, but it's like, we got to go, man. We got to pull these people directly.
Did you guys know this guy at all? Have you ever met him?
I know him. I know. Okay. I've dealt with him in the past. A lot. So yeah, I know him pretty well.
Know what you were walking into.
So I had no idea we were walking in. I'd never been to this house. Right. Ken and I pull up. It's getting dark. We don't know how to get in there. We're texting the girl that texts me, hey, where's his apartment? We don't know. Yeah. You know, like, I don't see apartment G. You know, we're walking all around. We end up knocking on a window. And Ken, I love the way that you express this story from your perspective. But we get this man to physically come out of his house after banging on the window. Like, Jerry, come out. Jerry, come out. Jerry comes out, and Ken, what's the first thing that he says to us? So
immediately, I hope that we're on the same page, but immediately the first thing he says is he looks at Chuck and is extremely combative. I don't believe in God. I don't want God. I don't love God. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell. I just want to die. Leave me alone. You don't know what it's like. I don't even want you here. Leave from me right now. No. That last part wasn't there. Leave me right now wasn't there. But
that was good, though.
That's how I felt.
I felt that. I looked at Ken.
I don't want you here. I mean, if you come out and the first thing you do is look, and you know what Chuck's about, I don't want anything to do with God. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell. Why would God leave me like this if there was a God? I mean, every argument that you had ever heard, and to me, that was just leave right now. But for some strange reason, which I know why.
Yeah.
But reason doesn't. He sat down and was willing to listen.
He sat down, and Ken has this way. Even that you've heard him get excited, but Ken has this way to really connect with people in a really soft tone. Ken sits down and says, "Can I ask you a few questions?"
Yeah.
And when Ken's doing that, guess who I'm talking to?
Yeah.
I am praying to the Holy Spirit. I'm praying in tongues to myself. I'm talking. I'm like, God, we need you here on this step right now. Ken, within 10 minutes?
Yeah, we had him willing to go get something to eat.
Yeah.
And to go get a haircut because we were going to take him to the hospital. He was willing to go to the hospital. I wish the story ended there because that alone would be enough to affirm it, but it gets crazy.
What was amazing is we found out that this guy's been in this house for at least 4 weeks cutting himself.
So let's go back to Mark 5, and I'm pretty sure it's Mark 5, right, where you talk about the guy in the graveyard, right, the outcast who was chained. He was literally cutting himself, the word says, and a couple of other things. The gentleman that we intervened with, so immediately when I have a pretty tough stomach, right, I've been through some things, and I just naturally have a tough stomach. Chuck probably still has the text. I texted him, I said, I need you to bring in some smell good because I've already thrown up twice in my mouth because there was bowls of blood all around the house. He had been cutting himself, trying to bleed out.
For weeks.
The
house smelled like death.
I'm talking about
he was spiritually dead.
Listen, imagine walking into a house that ain't that big. His whole living room, his whole first floor might have been this big.
I seen the pictures. They were graphic.
And there was bowls of blood all over. And but once again, like, we just meet people with their needs, no judgment. Like, we had already told them that our mess had become the message.
Check this out, Glenn. Scroll to the left.
If you're gonna eat lunch here in the next hour, I seriously would. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being honest with you.
We're fasting.
Scroll.
Oh, did it left? All right.
This is what we walk into.
So we meet him on his steps once again. Chuck calls, and immediately, like, I already know God. God, my heart is ready for these type of things. Like, God is like, this is your mission. Like, go and just very simply tell your story. Like, all you got to do is tell how I pulled you out of darkness. If the God wanted doctors or psychiatrists to be able to pull people out of darkness like this, he would have given them the ability to meet them, but he didn't. Like, we're the chosen ones in that sense. And I don't mean chosen, divinely appointed. Maybe
I got
not.
you.
But, like, we're the chosen ones because God gave us the ability to reach others.
He chose
through
us
that.
first.
He
We
chose.
didn't choose him.
There's a poem called "The Chosen," and I hope that anybody who sees this goes and looks at it, and it describes exactly what we're doing. It's really,
a poem.
It's a poem.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called "The Chosen." It's really, really good. But so we helped Jerry, and he's a vet, but he had never really been to the VA. I've worked for the VA. I've worked in government as I was a military and veterans advisor for Congress, so I knew a couple things. And I'm like, well, let's take him down to Mercy first, because they have a psych floor and we'll get them in, right? So meanwhile, we found out Mercy doesn't have a psych floor. But I'm sitting down there, me and Chuck are sitting down there, and the guy asked him for his social. He forgot about this, right?
This is amazing.
Meanwhile, we're not born. We're a couple years apart, right? If you know anything about Social Security numbers, they kind of go on how the birth certificates are received. Meanwhile, he's like 2 years ahead of me. Roughly a year and a half, 2 years. Jerry is, yeah.
The veteran we're helping.
He's older than me, by a year and a half, 2 years. And, in the medical, when he reads his social, and it's 5 digits, and then the last 4 are 4 or 5. My last 4.
Don't be putting that out.
No, I know. That's why I said the last 2. I thought about this before. 6-5.
Their social security numbers are 2 off.
Yeah.
So it's like both of ours are 111, 1111, 11. His is 3-5.
Yeah.
Or 4-5. Mine is 6-5. We're 2 off. So whatever reason it just hit me. It was like, just Google what the numbers 4 and 6 mean together. That's all I Googled. Because how can we be 2 years apart, but we're together in this room? We're the only ones that can reach them, and our social security numbers are 1 number off. and it's not like the first number, so that would show some, the progression of people applying. 4-5 minus 6-5, so 20 after his. So I go online real quick, and I'm like, just very simply, what does the number 4 or 6 mean? Sometimes God speaks through numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And the numbers 6 and 4 together mean you're being called and walking in your purpose. So I go home and
He's texting me this.
Yeah, so this is it. It's all documented, right? And I'm texting him and I'm like, Chuck, I'm like, you won't believe this. The socials are this. It's 4 and 6. I looked this. Once again, could it be a coincidence? Absolutely. With God, is it a coincidence? Nope. Absolutely not. So I'm talking to Chuck and I'm like, yeah, man, I want to believe it about God speaking through numbers. Remember this?
Right.
About God speaking through numbers, right?
And then the very next day.
And I'm still doubting it. Once again, down Thomas. I'm in the boat, man. We're always in the boat, right? And I'm doubting it. I'm like, man, did God really just... So all this is going on, man. We're being called. Chuck has the dream. My heart's here. Jerry, this happens with Jerry. So I go to the VA the next day to help those that are sick and suffering and take a meeting. And I randomly turn to a page and it's 220. And for whatever reason, it blurts out of my mouth like a lot of things just do. I'm like, oh, Nini Maru, that was my barracks number in Okinawa. Mm-hmm. Literally, the guy looks right at me and he says, don't you know God speaks through numbers?
Like, you can't make this stuff up.
And
like these messages that come in.
So like, our calling on this is completely affirmed at this point. So we finally get Jerry to Mercy. And then I'm able to go up to the VA the next day and talk to him. Right. And we're able to actually get him into the VA under a law that was passed that I was aware of. So he's in the VA. So now Jerry's in the VA. Jerry, 2 days ago, was I hate God. I want nothing to do with God. There is no God. There is no heaven.
Don't talk to me about heaven.
Don't talk to me about... If there is a God, he hates me. Yeah. Right? Go ahead.
No.
So I get a call from Jerry.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah.
Let me add one thing in.
Yeah, please do.
We get him into the VA on a Friday night. Calls me, Chuck, will you come visit me? The next Saturday, I come visit him. Will you bring me some underwear? Will you bring me some socks?
Meeting people's needs, right? Meeting people's needs.
Of course I will, right? Guess what else I bought him? A Bible.
I was going to say a Bible.
So we go in the visiting room, right? They bring in they have to go search his clothes, make sure they're searching the clothes. Clothes come out. I said, I brought you something else. And he's like, what? And I hand him the Bible. And he kind of snickered. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay. I'm like, read the Gospel of John. That's all I'm asking you. Just commit to that. Read the Gospel of John. Couple days later.
So mind you, this is where we left Jerry. I visit him and I'm talking to him, and but I don't know anything about that. A couple of days later, Jerry calls me and he's like, hey, do you got time to come visit me? Because I've been reading this book and I want to talk about some things. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, of course, man. I'll come in. Like, what have you been reading? And he's like, the Bible. And then he starts quoting scripture to me. He's like 1 Thessalonians says this and that. And I'm like, what is going on here, right? And he's like, but wait a second. He's like, there's another guy in here, right?
Yeah.
This is where it catches fire. He's like, there's another guy in here that doesn't have anybody, that's downbeaten and hopeless just like I am. Will you talk to him? Jeff. I'm like, this is what we do. Yeah. We're veterans who've been through the struggle, made it. We go back and pull other veterans out. Other people, it's what we do. So just Jeff, right? Jeff. So Jeff gets on the thing and we're talking and he's like, you know what, man? He's like, it's crazy. He's like, it's like six months just keeps being a theme. It's like 6 months ago, I started getting all these Facebook fights about the theology and God, and I feel like God left me when I was 18 years old. He's like, but I come in here and I meet Jerry, and Jerry's talking about God, and Chuck brought me something, and now I meet you. He's like, maybe there's something to this God thing, and I'm like, yeah. So he's like, can I call you tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, right. So he calls me the next day, and he's like, yeah, can you do me a favor? Can you bring me in something? And when you're dealing with people new to recovery, fresh off the street, I'm prepared for anything. Can you bring me socks? Can you bring me food? No. Can you? My heart is open to meet people's needs. And we're going to get to the mission statement because we're running low on time, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's like, so Jeff calls me, and he's like, hey, can you bring me some? And I'm like, of course, man. He's like, no. He's like, I'll give you my debit card. Can you order me something? I'm like, sure, man. Whatever you need. He's like, can you bring me in one of those Bibles? So and it gets better. And I'm like. Okay, and I'm like, yeah, great. And essentially I'm like, why? Oh, because Jerry's holding Bible studies in here. So this is what I'm saying. This is why this story is so important for us. Everything's been led up to the, for me and Chuck's from day one when we were in the womb, man, God had this planned out. Our trials and tribulations, two people 400 miles away that don't know either of us randomly direct us toward each other.
Right.
The miracles that we experience individually and collectively, what he has going on with you that brings us here today, right? And all of this, and then our trials and our faith and being in the boat. And now it's SemperFi, always faithful. How did we miss that, man?
Right.
And then literally it comes to Jerry. And it's like God's putting it on our heart, and I'm still like, yeah, God, I have faith, I'm going to do what you need me to do. But God showed us the results.
Immediately.
That's what God said.
This is what can happen repeatedly whether it's in Pittsburgh or nationally or
within 2 days, the gentleman that couldn't be reached by nobody, that was cutting himself trying to die for a month, that was unreachable, that Satan had his throat around, by just showing up and telling your testimony and meeting the needs, physical, emotional, and spiritual needs and mental needs. Now this person's in the psych floor where Jesus would be, I believe, literally carrying a Bible study. I said, Jerry, I said, do me a favor. My favorite chapter is Matthew 6. I said, read that. You know, he read it, and then the next day he had it all figured out. He was like, yeah, it's all about seeking God first and just trust in him. Yeah, he had it figured out. And I'm like, man, I don't really have much to share with you, Jerry, except my personal experience. I'm like, 2 weeks ago, let's I'll say this and then I'll be quiet. It wasn't like we just met somebody randomly on the street who didn't believe in God. I'm talking about, you want to walk into the den of Satan?
The smell, the
blood,
spiritually
we
dead.
walked out that night and I looked at Chuck and I said, we pissed somebody off tonight. And Chuck, you ever seen Chuck do this? He does this with his hands and he gets this little smile and he says, yeah. And I said, we took one away from the evil one. We saved another one.
We brought him to
Christ.
Absolutely.
You know? And so like that's what SemperFi Mission is about. And Jerry just confirmed that for us because like we put in this little bit of work and Jerry right now is in the psych floor who completely resisted God. I mean, way beyond resisted God, right?
Combative.
Yeah. Literally is holding Bible studies. I mean, God is.
You can't make that up.
I'm going to say this and then I'm going to shut up. What we're doing right now, this is the hand of God. I said that a couple weeks ago. God is building a kingdom, man.
That's right.
God is setting some things on fire.
That's right.
And that's why Jesus came. Going, sorry.
No.
To tell us about the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
To tell us about heaven.
And I get that. And all that is true. But what I'm saying is that I really believe with SemperFi Mission that we are going to see the kingdom rise up right now.
I see it. I know it.
I'm talking about.
I'm like, in my head, no lie, guys. Like in my head, because me and Jared talk about this a lot, and me and him made a promise. We're going to have a lot of guests that can give testimonies on the show this year. And sitting here, I'm not even playing. I'm like, I'm sitting here just thinking, right? I'm paying attention to everything. I'm glued to you. I like how you speak. I like how you're telling your stories. Like the same way I like Jared and myself and Chuck whenever we talk, and this is good stuff. And I'm just sitting here thinking, and I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do. Yeah. Like we're supposed to. We need to get more stuff out.
Well, and men need to know that there's men out there, real men who've been through it, who love the Lord. Yeah, they're walking, ain't talking about it, doing it.
I got to say this: in 7 months, it's not going to surprise me. I'm talking about believing. I'm talking about that faith, right?
Faith, yeah.
I'm talking about in 7 months. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna call it now.
Prophesy.
In 7 months, when it comes on the news. And it says that there's been a whole floor down the Allegheny County Jail that has given their life to God.
Yeah.
And this floor was in turmoil before that. And suddenly something happened and God came to them. And it's because of Chuck's ministry in there. I'm talking about a whole pod of men who were incarcerated, who were in there because society threw them away because there's no hope. Men that literally only knew selfishness and bondage. Bondage to self and bondage to pride and ego. I'm talking about when that jail floor rises.
Yeah.
And people say we need to put a chapel right here in the church on the floor because it's doing what we cannot do. I'm saying right now, when that happens, just know that it's the faith that got us there.
Faith.
And just know, like, my faith is that strong. Like, there is a kingdom. We could talk about the kingdom, and we know the kingdom of God is here, and we know the kingdom is growing. I'm saying we're going to see something tangible.
Yeah.
I'm talking about chapel bells ringing on the seventh floor, but the veterans pod. I'm talking about things like that. We're going to see it.
And we can't give what we don't got. God has given us all a measure of faith, right?
Right.
And we got it from what we've been through, right? You can't give what you don't got.
Have.
And what does God say? His eyes go to and fro the whole earth. He's looking for one. That's
Send
you.
Me.
That's
Send
you.
me.
That's you.
Ken and I say it all the time.
He's looking for one that'll do his will and be available for him to do it.
And that's what we're all doing here. That's what we're
take
all
a quick chance. Go ahead, Chuck. So this is
the
mission statement.
So this is to kind of culminate this. The SemperFi Mission will meet the physical, mental, and spiritual needs of our neighbors in tangible ways through meaningful encounters in ministry, outreach, and provisions to demonstrate the mercy of God and to transmit His love in impactful ways. You know, it's that threefold. We're even adding a fourth fold. Yeah. You know, the prison ministry, the outreach ministry, the mentorship side of it. but then also the connecting, the professional side of it, with connecting people.
And I want to go on the record and say this right now. We met with the CPA 2 days ago, and he looked at us, and he's a man, of professional stature, and he understands us, and he says, "What's your fundraising strategy?" I gave him a one-word answer, man. I said, God.
Jesus. That's it. That's I mean, Jared's been, what, 7-8 years with Premiere now?
Almost 10.
Almost 10. That's right.
Yeah.
Almost 10. Sorry. Yeah, almost 10. And Jared's still going by the grace of God somehow, some way. Yeah. And things just keep happening. And then, well, we don't have time to talk about that, but we also have a bunch of plans, and we're just going to press in and do what we're going to do. But it brings you back to maybe you can recollect the story. I brought it up probably on the podcast before, but I remember I was listening to Shuttlesworth preach.
Right.
So Jonathan's up there. I forget. For some reason, I want to say he was like up in Canada, and somebody was driving him. I don't know if it was an Uber or something like that, but I could be totally wrong because my brain just like makes this dumb stuff up. But the conversation was, Jonathan was like, "I'm a preacher, this and that." Started talking about God and all, and just briefly. And the dude that was driving or whatever was just like, he looked back at Jonathan. Jonathan's like, I'll never forget his face. He's like, "We got to tell everybody." And Jonathan's like, "I know, that's what I'm trying to do."
Right.
But and so like,
it was an Uber driver. Yeah.
I'll never like forget that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, that's what this mission is.
Christians,
so God spoke to us. Jesus put us together. He put you guys together. I'm telling you, it's popping up everywhere. Like, dude, Christian musicians, Christian rappers,
the athletes.
The athletes are coming out
that are now giving glory to God. There's
guys.
I mean, Hulk Hogan, the Reaper, or whatever his name is. That dude.
Bro, Revelations is unfolding in front 100%. Of us. Why do you think people like us and groups like us are rising up and people are coming over like this? Because it's a choice. It's a choice, and the Holy Ghost is on the planet Earth, and it's coming. And like I said, it ain't coming right now today. It's already here.
Right.
And how long it takes, we don't know. But like Jonathan preaches too, we don't know when it's going to be. You ready? You ready? Mm-hmm. And that is our job. And like somebody said to me too, like, imagine you go up to heaven, right? Like you go up to heaven, like your buddy Jerry, and then they're going to meet you and be like, "You're the reason I'm here."
That's right, man. So that's why that story is so crazy, because I say it all the time. I'm like, man, if my eyes opened up today, God got something for me to do, right? If my eyes didn't open, then I wouldn't have nothing to do. So when I wake up, I'm like, there's something to do today for the Lord, right? And then you say, like, I am the only person in between somebody going to hell and going to heaven today.
Amen.
And y'all walking that thing out is powerful, man. The way that you like saying yes and being available for that, it's just different. I'm just telling y'all, it's different.
I think
like God gave y'all something important to do, and if I could help or serve, like I told you before, bro,
of course,
I'm in.
Yeah,
there's a place for you.
We're collaborating
for sure.
We're 100% collaborating. We're doing it. We're gonna.
For all four of us, I think
iron sharpens iron, baby.
Exactly important for us to know is like, not everybody's who's desperate. And who needs Jesus is going to walk into a church to find Jesus.
Right.
That's what I said.
That's what we're here for.
We may be the only version of God's grace and mercy. We may be the only Bible that somebody ever sees
to reach the lepers of today.
Right.
And that's why I look at these men and women are the outcast, the lepers. Don't go near them. Don't touch them. Bro, I'll sit down, hold your hand, and pray with you.
I've been saying that forever.
Go buy you a sandwich.
We're here to find our people. I've been telling that to Jared. I said we're here to get our people, and it's just like that meme you sent me, and you sent, and you sent.
Right.
It is the Lord's work.
It's the Lord's work, 100%. But yeah, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I love this.
We appreciate y'all, man, for sure.
Wow.
Man.
Awesome testimony.
We were outside like, do you think we'll get 20 minutes in?
Yeah.
Here we are 2 hours later.
Remember I told you, I said, bro, we can, and especially me, but like, hey, I barely talked this time.
We took
that's
your
awesome.
time.
That's awesome.
We took, you guys had a whole nother agenda.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Listen, it's in the Holy Ghost is spoken. That's why I was like, we're rolling. The whole time, when Ken was just rolling, I'm like, this is it. This is what, today, this is it. This is
no doubt.
And I wish we had more time, but we just don't.
No, we'll be back. When you guys get this testimony.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's 7 months, but probably before that, y'all will be back on here talking about it. We got to bring you on separately anyway.
So
call to action.
2 years.
Call to action is hey, ChristYinz.io. We got some gear. Go check it out. Christians on any social media platform.
Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah,
TikTok,
Spotify, YouTube,
all that. Yeah.
Make sure you follow, like, and share, please. It helps a lot. Drop some comments, let us know, and share some of this stuff. But thank you guys.
If anybody out there listening has somebody that they're that's struggling, bring them to my shop.
Yep.
30 minutes. Let me clean them up. Let me shape them up.
Right near Ross Park Mall. Right near Ross Park Mall.
Park Mall. Valor Men's Grooming.
Valor Men's Grooming.
Valor
Yes.
Men's
That's
Grooming.
on Instagram too.
Bring
and
them
Facebook.
in. Sit in the chair.
Yeah.
I'll invite Ken in.
And SemperFiMission.org should be launching soon, right?
Very soon.
Very soon.
Awesome. Well,
So how is that? That's how everybody could get a hold of you guys. Go there. Valor Men's Grooming.
Valor Men's Grooming for now.
Yeah.
Directly, everyone that knows Ken, that knows
Yeah.
myself, can reach out there.
all right. Well, be blessed.
Be blessed, y'all. We out.